Welcome back to the live show. I am back. I am back. I am back. So, for some reason, the internet was cut off. I don't know why, but I guess because we just got connected back to the internet. So, hey, I'm just blessed that we have internet back on in the house. All right. Thank you for tuning in one more time. Double tap your screen, subscribe to the channel. You guys are the best. All right, it is currently 4 a.m. and today's date is the 14th of October 2024. This is going to be the part two of the Pray for America stream because the internet was cut off. So I'm starting again and I'm going to name this one Pray for America Part 2. Um, for you guys who are just tuning in to this one, this is the part two. This is the part two. And hopefully the internet doesn't cut off this time. Okay. Let's put our polls up as usual. All right. We are back. We are back. We are back. We are back. It is your boy Genesis in the house. How are you doing? How are you doing? How are you? Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you guys. I said thank you always. I appreciate you guys. Without you guys, there is no stream. You guys make it worth a while. I am blessed to have a platform like this to, to reach a lot of people and just to say my opinion. I am glad. I'm grateful. Like I always say, don't stop believing in yourself. Don't stop believing in God. Don't stop believing in your dreams. Do not give up on yourself. Do not give up on God. Do not give up on your dreams. All right. Shout out to everybody watching the live show right now. If you hear my voice, remember to pray for America because this is our home. We have our family here. We got our businesses here. And some of us have homes here. You know what I mean? So God is great. God is 100% great. The title of today's show, this is the part two because the first one was cut off. Pray for America Part 2. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to listen to the 45th. Some people say he might be the 47th. Donald J. Trump's rally in Arizona. Let's listen to the legendary Trump.
Council. We strongly support and endorse Donald J. Trump for President of the United States. Good job.
I gotta tell you, I was a little worried. He got up, he had no notes. He didn't have a teleprompter. I can understand that. I don't use it too much either. And it is nice to have people that don't need teleprompters, isn't it? But he got up here, and he had no notes, and you gave a perfect deal. I think we're gonna all have to go back inside. That was a good job. Did he do a good job? Look at all these Border Patrol and ICE. They're great heroes. And I want to let you know, Paul, I want to just tell you and everybody, all my friends, I have so many of them in this group. It's an incredible group of people. I will always stand with the incredible men and women of Border Patrol. And today I'm announcing a plan to address the shortage. You know, we have a tremendous shortage because they haven't been treated right. They want to do their jobs. You know, they consider it bad treatment when you're not allowed to do your job. And that's the biggest problem. They don't want people running in front of them. They want to stop them from coming in, and that's going to save a lot of people, including the people they're stopping. But to address the shortage of Border Patrol agents caused by the catastrophic failures of Kamala, our great border czar, who's the worst in history, we have a tremendous morale crisis because of her and her policies. I mean, think of it. Not one of the leaders, you have all the leaders up here, you have all the leaders in the room, you have Brandon right over there, was a leader for a long time, brilliantly the leader, never got a call from them. Not Biden, he was sleeping, and not her. No, not her, she never called. Never once. I saw this, I didn't ask them. I saw this, and a reporter asked Paul, have you ever been called? No, I haven't. How can you do that? Most important thing, it's the fabric and lifeblood of our country, and they're destroying our country, and they never even, and these are the people in charge. So there's a big morale problem, and she ruined the jobs of a lot of these border agents. They went after people, remember? With the horses, do you remember that? Do you remember? That was a terrible thing. It turned out that they were totally wrong, but they went after a lot of other people, very innocent people. They go after those people, but they don't go after the criminals that are coming in to kill. They don't go after them. So in order to meet the goal of hiring 10,000 new agents, we need the agents. We need them badly. And keeping our incredible veteran agents on the force. Don't leave us. Raise your right hand. You're not going to leave. You're not going to leave. Don't leave us, fellas. I don't have to worry about them. They're very committed people. If we pay them nothing, they're not leaving. They want to save our country. They're going to save our country. But after I win, I will be asking Congress immediately to approve a 10% raise. I haven't had one in a long time for all agents. And a $10,000 each retention and signing bonus. So we're going to retain them. We're going to retain them. It's almost like being a great baseball player or football player, but not quite as much money, but not bad, right? Now, we're going to retain them, and they deserve it. They've been treated unbelievably badly, and the fact that they continue. And you don't hear they're going out on strike, they're going to this, they don't do that. They would never do it. They're just incredible people. This will ensure that we can hire and keep the Border Patrol agents that we need to keep, and we can also bring in a lot of new ones, really great ones, and we're going to have our choice. I think we're going to have our choice. There's going to be a whole new spirit. This is a group that really needs spirit because they're protecting us, they're protecting our lives, they're protecting our country. So we're going to be doing that. And while you guys are up here, I also want to introduce a great guy and a very big man in the world of law enforcement, national president of the Fraternal Order of Police, Patrick Yos, representing 400,000 law enforcement, largest in the country by far, law enforcement officers, and I'm truly honored to have their endorsement as well. Patrick, thank you, wherever you may be. Thank you, Patrick. That's really nice. I'd have you up here, but I don't think Secret Service will allow anybody to get through this. It's gotten a little tight. That's good. That's supposed to be that way. Patrick, thank you. 400,000. Wow, that's great. I think we have every law enforcement group in the United States, the sheriffs. They're incredible people, and they really do. It's easier for them not to do their job. They want to work like hell, and they want to clean out our country and straighten out our country. And we want to have people in our country that love our country. They love our country. And we're going to have that. And despite all of the damage that Kamala has inflicted on the state, and, you know, don't forget, she's the vice president, right? But Joe gave her the assignment, and so I don't even mention his name. I'm not even sure what is he doing? Although he's looked very good lately. He's looked better than her, actually. No, I've always said, I'm not a big fan of his, as you probably have heard, but he's superior to her. He's more intelligent than she is. Can you believe? You ever think you'd be hearing that? And I mean it. But she said last week that she can't think of one thing that she would do differently. Not one thing. Think of it, not one thing. So, fellas, you stay up here, just look at this one tape, and then you go back and enjoy it. But I just want to tell you, you are phenomenal people. We love you all, and you're doing a great job for our country. Thank you, thank you. Thank you very much.
Would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind.
I stood there on the tarmac watching you check your watch.
The chaotic and deadly U.S. evacuation from Afghanistan stunned Americans and the world and cost the lives of 13 U.S. soldiers.
Would you have done something differently?
There is not a thing that comes to mind.
More than 13,000 illegal immigrants convicted of murder have been caught at the border and then released into the United States.
An Afghan national is in custody today after being accused of plotting an election day terrorist attack. The suspect entered the U.S. on a special immigrant visa.
Gut-wrenching new details in the murder of Georgia nursing student Laken Riley. The illegal immigrant suspect, who cops say committed the heinous murder, is a Venezuelan national who crossed the unsecured southern border back in 2022.
Two men investigators say are in the country illegally from Venezuela are charged with capital murder in the death of Jocelyn Nungaray.
A fifth illegal immigrant accused of attacking two New York City police officers over the weekend showed no remorse or regret.
Would you have done something differently?
There is not a thing that comes to mind.
Only 18% say the economy is in excellent or good condition. US inflation has hit a new 40-year high, increasing by 9.1% over the financial year.
The cost of homes have spiked. Home buyers need to earn 80% more than they did in 2020 to afford a house.
Were you the last person in the room? Yes.
Appreciate it, Paul. Thank you. Thank you.
You be blessed, sir. You be blessed.
Great job. Let me come to Madison. You'll do it. Okay. I'll have you. Thanks. Great people. By the way, I see a couple of other people. Do you mind if I introduce two? Cash, stand up, Cash. Cash Patel. And I spotted him. You had no problems when he was in charge. You know who that is? Sheriff Joe. Sheriff Joe! Oh, stand up. Oh. Brandon, sign him up immediately. Paul, you got to sign him up immediately. Sheriff Joe. Well, you didn't have any problems with Sheriff Joe. He was tough and fair. You know what? He was actually very fair. It was amazing. Thank you very much, Sheriff Joe. I just saw you here. I would have had you come up, but you are a special guy. Thank you. He had a wonderful wife. He just lost his wife a little while ago, but she was a wonderful woman, and she's looking down at you. You couldn't have made her life too easy, I could guarantee you that. But she loved you, Sheriff Joe, so you take care of yourself, okay? Great guy. So the answer that she would do nothing different is totally disqualifying. So think of it. We have the worst president in the history of our country by far. The happiest man is Jimmy Carter because he was brilliant by comparison. His administration is considered now brilliant by comparison. We have the worst. And she says that she would do nothing different than the worst president that we've ever had. We have a right track, wrong track, where he sets a record every week for the wrong track. And she says that because it wasn't that she really meant that. What she really wanted to do, but she couldn't think of anything. When I heard that question, I said, oh, this is going to be a bad answer for me. Meaning she's going to knock this one out of the park. And she said, no, I want to be the same as Joe Biden. Anybody that votes for her, you should have your head examined. She'll want to know the truth. 86% of the country thinks we're on the wrong.
Thank you for tuning into the live show. You know what time it is. Constant Spray. This is not a recording. This is live. I just want you to know. I see you, Constant Spray. Tap your screen, subscribe to the channel. Let's get it.
Track. And she says, no, I do everything the same. Keep the airplanes flying. You know the worst thing? And I'll bring this up a little separately. 325,000 young children are probably dead or missing, but certainly missing. And they're either sex slaves, or they're dead. Think of the number. It's not 2, which is too many. It's not 100. It's 325,000 lives are probably gone. Their parents will never get to see them again. And these are people that she allowed just as if she had a gun in her hand, okay? And for that woman to be running for president is a disgrace, and everybody knows it. How can you keep someone who's stated plainly and clearly that she will change absolutely nothing from Biden? Kamala is turning us into a third world nation. Weaponization. How about the weaponization? I've been investigated more than the great Alphonse Capone, late great. Do you guys know Alphonse Capone, Scarface? This is a rough guy. I don't know. He may be even too tough for Paul. I don't know, Paul. This is a tough one. Alphonse Capone, Scarface. I've been investigated more than Alphonse Capone. It's called the weaponization of the Justice Department, and we've never had it. This was a third world, happens all the time in the third world, banana republics. It happened in the United States. And can you believe I'm leading? Who the hell, where did it happen where you're leading? Because the people get it. They get it. All my life, I never had a problem. Now my beautiful parents are up in heaven. I think they are. Even my father made it there. He could be rough, but I think because he was a good person, strong, tough, but he was a good person. My mother, guarantee. She's a guaranteed. But they're up there looking down. They say, how did this happen to my son? You know, I could have been on the most beautiful beaches in the world right now. I could have been enjoying a life, the waves smacking me in the face, my beautiful mane of hair blowing in the breeze. No hairspray, no hairspray necessary. The most beautiful places in the world. I own some of the greatest clubs. I could have had the greatest life. But I'd rather be in Arizona with you and these people all day long because we're going to make America great again. Right? Right? Thank you. With our victory, we will become the greatest, strongest, freest, and safest, and the most powerful nation again in the world. We're not considered a great nation right now, but we're going to be a great nation again, and it's not going to take long. I will quickly defeat inflation, and we will make America affordable again. We're going to have to do that. It's not affordable. And you know what people bring up more than anything? Simple things like groceries. They say groceries. Who would think that? Groceries. But they bring it up. Cars. They do a lot of different, everything basically. Look, we had the worst inflation, I think, they say in 48 years, I think ever. There's never been anything like it. And they don't even put the really bad, like as an example, we had interest rates at 2%. They went up to 10%. Well, they don't include that. They don't include many things. And by the way, at 10%, you can't get the money. So obviously it's much higher than 10%. For all of the working people struggling under Kamala's inflation nightmare, we will have large tax cuts for workers. We're going to have beautiful additional tax cuts, including no tax on tips. No tax on tips. No tax on overtime. And no tax on Social Security benefits for our seniors. And you deserve it. You know, the seniors have suffered because they're on fixed income, many of them, and the inflation has made it impossible. Everything they've taken in, and it's just gone. They're wiped out, and we're not going to do that. We're not going to let that. Then they're supposed to pay tax yet. By contrast, Kamala Harris is known as the taxing queen. She loves taxes. She's the only one I've ever seen. She campaigns on the fact that she wants to give you a 70% tax increase. Her plan will raise your typical American family taxes by at least $3,000 a year, congratulations, and run a bad and unsafe government. I also announced last week that we will make interest payments on cars, loans. We're going to make them tax deductible first time. Because affording a car is essential to restoring the American dream, which we're going to restore. You know, friends of mine called me and they said, some of the biggest analysts, the greatest analysts on Wall Street, brilliant guys, where did you ever come up with the idea of deducting interest? You know, it's like the paperclip. It was developed about 125 years ago. Some guy took a little, and he made the paperclip, and everybody says, oh man, why didn't I think of that, right? It's like deductibility. It's going to be incredible because you'll sell a lot more cars, and we're going to protect our car business now. We're going to protect them. Made in the USA, and we don't have to go through it, but made in the USA, and we're going to protect them with tariffs. I do have to tell you one quick story. You don't mind if I never go back on the teleprompter again, do you? No, I watch Paul and I say, damn it, I don't think I'm supposed to use the teleprompter anymore, Carrie. You know? I watch the way. So I've been telling you a story for about a year that in Mexico, they're building some of the biggest car plants anywhere in the world. And I told you about a friend of mine who's a brilliant guy, but especially when it comes to building a car plant. With other things, he's not so good, but he can build a computerized car plant. It's unbelievable. So I saw him about 4 or 5 months ago, and I said, you know, I want you to take me on a tour of one of your plants. He's the biggest builder of plants in the world. I want you, so you'll be able to figure them out if you really want to. I don't think the fake news, wow, that's a lot of fake news back there. That's a lot of cameras. I didn't even notice. That's a lot. That's a lot of fake news. Holy mackerel. Look at those red lights go off. Those red lights, those suckers are going off. Every time I do that, those lights go off because they don't want me to call them corrupt and horrible people. You can let them go back on now. I'll get off. No, I just looked up. That's a lot of cameras. Who the hell can do this 2-3 times a day? One little mistake. If I pronounce a word slightly wrong, and I tend not to go back because I don't want to go back. I don't want to say, excuse me, let me go. I like to bull through it. So I speak for hours, mostly without a teleprompter, really mostly. One mispronunciation of a word. He's cognitively impaired. He's getting old. He's getting old. He mispronounced a word like the name of the gang, if I did. No, I think I got it perfectly, didn't I? But if they see any, they watch for weeks and weeks. For weeks and weeks, I'm up here ranting and raving. Last night, 100,000 people, flawless, ranting and raving. I'm ranting and raving. Not a mistake. And then I'll be at a little thing and I'll say something a little bit like I'll say, duh. They'll say, he's cognitively impaired. No, I'll let you know when I will be. I will be someday. We all will be someday, but I'll be the first to let you know. But when you can do this 3-4 times a day, and you can go from site to site, from Arizona to Pennsylvania to Michigan. Right? And then you have some little writer at the New York Times who's been really bad lately. They follow every single word. Did he get, wait a minute. He said something wrong. I actually say things very right, and they'll use the same story but belittle it like it doesn't exist, but it all exists. But they love it, you know, because Biden was obviously cognitively impaired. She should have reported him because that puts our nation in danger. We've never been so close to being in World War III than we are right now. And don't kid yourself, we have an election coming up, but we still have like 3.5 months left. And it's a long time in a nuclear world. And that would be a war like no other. And I'm not thrilled about the people representing us, even for a short period of time. But I just have to say, because you read so much, and now some people say he's the single greatest speaker of all time. Because you know what? Nobody's ever, I actually asked that question. Hundreds of thousands of people show up, and I assume it's for my looks. But I say, but you know, I said it today to Brandon. I said, you know, Brandon, it's funny. I look outside, you could fill this place up 3 times. If anybody would like to give up your seat, please. But outside it's packed. We put up television screens now. But I said to Brandon just a little while ago, I said, you know, I draw all these people. I don't think I've ever had a story that Trump is a great speaker. I hear about great speakers like Churchill. I hear about a lot of great speakers. But I've never heard that Trump is a great, uh-oh, now I'm in trouble, because you know what they're going to do? He's comparing himself to Winston Churchill. No, that's what they'll do, Andy, right? That's what they'll do. They'll say, oh, he's comparing himself. He was angry about... No, I've never had a story that I'm... And there's a reason these crowds are coming. And someday they're going to figure... She said, because we love you, and I love you too. That's why I come. She said that. How good is that? Where is that woman? Stand up. Oh, stand up. Look at her. Wow. I would say that's beautiful. Is she your wife? You know what? I would say she's a beautiful woman, but if I did say that, my political career, you're not allowed to say that. So I'm not allowed to call you a beautiful woman, but she is. So, crazy what's gone on. Have to be politically correct nowadays. And we're going to have something about our military talking about being politically correct, because we have a great military. I knocked out ISIS. I knocked out ISIS so fast. I knocked out ISIS so fast. To bring jobs and factories and wealth racing back to our shores, we will have a 15% made in America corporate tax rate. Now you have to understand, I brought it down from almost 40%. And these are corporations. They don't have to be in our country. You know, in the old days, they'd move from state to state. Now they move from country to country. Every country wants our corporations. So we have to treat them good. Kamala wants to take their taxes and raise them. And you know what they do? They'll say, that's okay. Let's go to Ireland. You know, the pharmaceutical industry moved to Ireland. Let's go to Europe. Let's go to Asia. Let's go to China. They want them so badly. So I moved it from 39, almost 40%, down to 21% and got it approved in Congress. But that doesn't make us great. It makes us good. It makes us competitive, sort of more than competitive. It was good. We had the greatest economy in the history of our country when I did that. We took in more revenue at 21 than we did at 39, which was amazing. People were pouring in. But here's what we're doing now. I'm moving it down to 15%, but only for those people who make their products in America. And in other words, a company, and by the way, you're going to see companies pouring back into our country. Somebody said, what are you going to do about the debt? We have a lot of debt, a lot of debt. And we were doing this, and then we got the China virus stuff, and that came out of nowhere. And we had to focus on that because people, and I wasn't really, other countries suffered so badly. Other countries, proportionally, they suffered worse than us. You know who suffered worse than us proportionally? It's China. So, it's like one of those things. But, so we had to focus on that. We did a great job in that. We never got credit. We never got credit for that, but we did a great job on that. Nobody knew what the hell it was. It came in. Our famous operation, they call it Operation Warp Speed. Operation Warp Speed gets military credit for being one of the most incredible things that they've ever seen, distribution of things. But we did a great job, and we got that. We handed over a country that was better. The stock market was higher than it was just previous to COVID coming in. So we did a great job, but we were in the process of doing this, and a friend of mine called up from Wall Street. He's considered a brilliant analyst. He said, like the other one, he said, where did you come up with the idea of taking it down, but only for companies that make their product? He said, that's a great idea. Can you imagine? You have all these 185 IQ people on Wall Street. That's sort of the ultimate. I think they say, you know who the smartest person they say in history was? Albert Einstein. He said Trump. I agree with him. He said Trump. My uncle, Dr. John Trump, MIT, 40 years. That's pretty smart. He was smart. My uncle was very smart. He used to tell me things a long time ago about nuclear. He said, someday, son, they'll have a weapon that you'll be able to carry into a building like a handbag, and it will blow up New York City. I said, Uncle John, that's never going to happen. He's the longest serving professor in the history of MIT, like 40 years, 41 years. Can you imagine? So this is good. Does anybody believe in genes? Do you guys believe in genetics? These guys have good genetics too for safety, and that's all we want you for. We don't want you for anything else. We don't want you for anything else. But for those who But they were asking me, where did you come up with this idea? It's just an idea. And you only get it if you make your product here, because we want jobs. We want jobs. It's about jobs. It's not about the products. But then we have to protect those companies that move in and the companies that we have. The auto industry has been wiped out. We will have more auto jobs than we did. It's my biggest ambition, have more auto jobs than we did 50 years ago in the prime. We are a tiny fraction of what we used to be, a fraction. And companies are going to move in at a level that nobody's ever seen, but we have to protect them. So how do we protect them? With tariffs. If you don't move your plant into the United States, we put tariffs. You're not going to make your car in China. I already did that, 27.5% tariff. Do you know Biden never took it off? Because if he ever did, it's so much money. But also, if he ever did, our country would be just overrun. We would have a country that was overrun with Chinese cars pouring in, and Detroit would be finished. It's almost finished now. You know, they lost 30,000 workers. They go to the all-electric mandate, where everybody has to have an electric car. I have to be very careful, because Elon endorsed me. But can I tell you, he understands it. It's not for everyone. What he does is incredible. The car is incredible. What he does, and you know the beautiful thing, he endorsed me. He's in Pennsylvania right now, and I should be there probably. Maybe, I don't know. I hear we're leading so much. I hear we're leading in your great state by so much. But I said, nope. We're going to be here. We're going to do it just the way we want to do it, and we're going to be in Pennsylvania a lot over the next 3 days. But he never once said. And, you know, this is a tribute, but look at the rockets coming in. He never once said to me, would you do me a favor? Could you lay off the electric car? No, the electric car is beautiful. It's great, and it's got a great market. It's going to do great. They're all going to do, I think it's great, but not 100%, because they're going to be made in China, most of them, because that's where we have a thing under our feet. It's called oil and gas. I call it liquid gold. So if you don't mind, we'll use that. And we're going to have hybrids. We're going to have electric. We're going to have everything. We're going to have gasoline-propelled cars. We have one other thing. You know about the new one that's come along? Does everyone know about hydrogen? We have a new technology that's coming along. It's coming along beautifully, Cash. It's coming along beautifully. It's hydrogen. It has one minor problem. It blows up. And when it blows up, and it doesn't happen often, like maybe one car a day. And when it blows up, you are unrecognizable. They call your wife, would you please come down to see if this is your husband that's laying next to a tree? And the wife goes over and said, no, I don't recognize that man. He's gone, whoever the poor guy is. No. So I'm not going to go heavy into hydrogen, if you don't mind, but electric and all. But we want to do this. We're going to move so many car companies are going to come back. They're going to come back from Germany. They're going to come back into our great country. And I will tell you that we will have a golden age. It just started. We have a golden age. And you know, if you look at the Teamsters, did you see the Teamsters? They voted. The rank and file voted for Trump. The firemen voted for Trump. The policemen and women voted for Trump. Amazing. The firemen and women hadn't voted for a Republican ever. It goes back a long time. Firemen and women, that goes back a long time. They voted for Trump. Can you imagine? The rank and file. And the Teamsters, I don't think they ever did either, but they voted for Trump. We got 61% of the vote. 61% of the vote. So there's something happening. It's changing. You know, I watch these people talking on television. They say, there's a change, and there is a change. You know what the change is? They want to see our country be great again. They want to make America great again, and they're seeing it. And they want to see our country be safe, too, and it's going to be safe. Because of them, it's going to be safe. So for all of this to happen, the car companies come back, our country be safe, Arizona must get out and vote. You got to get out and vote. That's all I don't want your money. Don't give me your money. We don't need money, we need votes. Got to get out and vote. All you need to do is make sure a couple of things happen. For instance, this woman that I just mentioned, Carrie Lake, she's running. She did so well. She's been an incredible candidate. If you looked at their last race, that was a great race. But I want to just, if you don't mind, I'm going to have Carrie Lake come up just for a couple of seconds and say a couple of words. You got to vote her in. You got to vote her in. Be careful. I said, be careful, Carrie, because that blows it. If you fall, that blows it.
We love you. Mwah. Oh, my goodness, do we love this man? You know, I used to say, after the first term of President Trump, we just witnessed one of the great presidents in American history. And now I say, this is the greatest president in American history. But I think it goes further than that. I think we are in the midst of one of the greatest leaders in human history, and his name is Donald J. Trump. This guy right here. But we got to get out and do our part. He's done so much work for us. Now each and every one of us has to do our part. That means we get out and we vote early. Can you do it? And then we call, how many of you have 10 friends? Okay. How many of you have 5 friends? Call every friend in your contact list and make sure they're going to get out and vote for Donald J. Trump and Carrie Lake for U.S. Senate. I want to go to Washington, D.C. and help President Trump secure our border, make our state safe again, make our state affordable again, and make our kids have access to the American dream. We love you, President Trump, and we're going to win Arizona for you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Carrie. Thank you. Yeah, she's great. She loves the state. She wants to see a very safe place, and that's going to happen. So thank you very much, Carrie. We're also pleased to be joined by Senator Mike Lee, a fantastic guy. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Mike. And also we have members of Congress. They've become such friends of mine. For whatever reason, I like these members a lot. From your state, Andy Biggs. Thank you. Warrior. He's a little on the conservative side, right? And that's okay, right? You know what he is? He's on the common sense side. Because that's what I say, we're the party of common sense more than anything else, right? So thank you very much. Great job. Blake Moore. Thank you. Thank you, Blake. Thank you. Celeste Malloy. Celeste. Paul Gosar. I love this guy. I love that guy. You talk about a fighter. Boy, he is some fighter. He fights everybody. He doesn't care. He just wants the state to be good. State or country. I think state maybe even in your case comes before the country. We got to talk about that. This guy, stand up once again, quick. Come on, stand up. There are a few like him. Right, Andy? Thank you. Great job you're doing. Thank you. Eli Crane. Great. Doing a fantastic job. And we have a very popular candidate. I don't even know why it's candidate. I mean, I feel he's been there for a long time. He's done really a fantastic job. Abe Hamadeh. Thank you. Feels like you've been there a long time, Abe. And the chairwoman of the Yavapai Apache tribe, Tanya Lewis. Tanya, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Tanya. Oh, beautiful. You look great. Thank you, darling. Also, we have many Azerasians in our room. We have some incredible people in our room. We have so many that we just can't But we have some people in our room that I'm not going to mention because they fully understand why, because I don't have time. But Robert O'Brien I'm mentioning because he's the one that got the 300 plus people. So Robert O'Brien, please stand up. Thank you. And Rick Grinnell, is Rick here? What happened to Rick? What happened to Rick? Oh, he's in trouble. Attorney General Sean Reyes. Thank you, Sean. Thank you. Raul Labrador. Thank you very much. Thanks. And Glenn Beck. I'm going to be doing his show. Thank you, Glenn. Thank you, Glenn. And two guys that are definitely strong people, Dave Riley and Dave Sparks, also known as Diesel Brothers. The Diesel Brothers. And Gold Star father, Darren Hoover, and mother, Kelly Barnett. They're here, and they're incredible people. I've gotten to know them. Taylor Hoover gave his life in Afghanistan. And thank you both very much. Thank you very much. Great young guy. Should have never happened. Should have never happened. They should have been at Bagram, and they should have done it properly. They didn't do the right job, but we appreciate it. It's great knowing you, too. Gotten to know them. Gotten to know a lot of the 13 families and the incredible people. Should have never happened. It was gross incompetence. Number one, you don't take your soldiers out first. You take them out last. That was the start. But we appreciate it very much. We'll see you again soon. I also want to send our love back to everyone in the East affected by the terrible recent hurricanes, and God bless you all. They've gone through a lot. Thank you. So, in closing, I just want to say Kamala Harris is a radical left Marxist, rated even worse than Bernie Sanders or Pocahontas. Do you know who Pocahontas? She cost a typical American family $29,000 worth her inflation nightmare. It cost you $29,000. You wouldn't have had inflation. You wouldn't have had Ukraine being attacked by Russia. You wouldn't have October 7th with Israel. It wouldn't have happened. You wouldn't have had that horrible, we were leaving Afghanistan, we would have left with dignity and strength, and we would have kept the Bagram, the big air base that we gave up to China. China now has it. Congratulations. The reason we should have kept it is because it was 1 hour away from where China makes their missiles. And just a horrible thing that we did. This group of people, and nobody gets fired. That's why nobody writes books about this guy. Well, number one, they wouldn't be buying them probably anyway, but nobody ever gets fired. Every general in that deal should have been fired. Every single general. You know, I defeated ISIS rapidly. We did it in a matter of weeks. It was supposed to take years. We have a great military, but we defeated. But you know, with Biden, they have all those mistakes made constantly on inflation, on everything's a mistake. Just, nothing works that he does. Nothing works. Nobody ever gets fired. I think he does that to avoid the bad books. But it's a terrible thing. When you do a bad job, you're fired, get the hell out of here. But Kamala was an original creator, I'm sure Border Patrol and ICE would like to hear this, of defund the police. She wanted to have defund the police. She was one of the people in charge. She was the proud defunder of the police. And by the way, anybody who wants to defund the police, even if it was for a short time, and in her case it was many years, is not worthy of being president of the United States. Kamala Harris vowed to abolish ICE, their friends. She wants to ban fracking as California Attorney General. She redefined, checked, and this is like crazy, child sex trafficking, assault with a deadly weapon, and rape of an unconscious person. She redefined them as totally nonviolent crimes. No, remember, she changed all of it. She's a different one. A year ago, if you looked at the debate where she was the first one to lose, she never got to Iowa. Great state, we love Iowa. See, now I don't have to go there because I've given it the kudos that it deserves. It's a great place, but we're leading by so much we don't have to go. Thank you, Iowa, I love you. But she never got to Iowa. She was out in the primaries. She was the first one out of 22. She got thrown out, and now here she is. She pledged to confiscate your guns and endorsed a total ban on handgun ownership. But think of it. 15 different things she changed. She took things, now she thinks fracking is wonderful. Now she thinks the ownership of a gun is a wonderful thing. She said, oh, I have one. What kind is it? Let me think about that. She even called for free sex changes for illegal aliens in detention, all at taxpayer expense. And she wanted to turn, but we're not going to let her. We'll get there in time. By the way, they're incapable of doing this anyway. Our military will never be woke. A couple of the losers on top, but will never be woke. It will never be woke. Take a look at this on the beautiful screen behind me. Take a look.
You little scumbag! I got your name. I got your ass. You will not laugh. You will not cry. You will learn by the numbers.
Happy Pride. Happy Pride Month. And actually, let's declare it a summer of pride.
So you're a killer? Sir, yes, sir. Let me see your war face. Sir, you got a war face? Ah! That's a war face. You're the lowest form of life, boy.
I can see how hard her job that never turned out would be. And by the way, the head of the Republican Party in Arizona is here. Please stand up. What a job you're doing. What a job. I just spotted you. Wow. And I hear we're doing well, huh? It's good. Yeah, we hear good things. Early voting, we hear get out and vote, get out and vote. Thank you. Great job you're doing. With your vote this November, we're going to defeat this radical left country destroyer. We're going to finish what we very brilliantly started. We had something going. We had the greatest economy in the history of the world. We had the best we've ever had, but the best. We had the safest border, the best border, the fewest people, the fewest drugs. We were watching the drugs. Human trafficking, which is mostly in women, unfortunately. It's vicious. Mostly in women. We had everything down to the lowest numbers they've ever seen. We will quickly become energy independent again. Think of it. We were energy independent 4 years ago. But we will immediately frack, and drill, baby, drill. We're going to drill, baby, drill. And I will cut your energy prices in half within 12 months. Everybody in this room, within 12 months, we have liquid gold, and we can do anything. We buy our oil from Venezuela. We call it Venezuelan tar. It's tar. And you have to take it and heat the hell out of it. What a mess. Goes right up for those environmentalists. If you are an environmentalist, it goes right up. And you know where it's done? In Houston. Because it's the only plant that can do it. It's the only plant that's equipped to do it. I will cancel Kamala Harris's insane electric vehicle mandate immediately. All forms of cars. Because a couple of people told me they don't want to stop 12 times to take a drive to Washington. You don't want to drive to various parts of the country when you can drive and have gasoline left over. You don't want to stop 19 times. I will stop outsourcing and turn the U.S. into a manufacturing superpower. That's going to happen because what I told you about the cars is applicable to every other industry. We're going to have so many new businesses. You're going to be calling me. Remember, I used to talk about winning, right? Same thing. Please, sir, please, we can't take any more companies coming into America. It's too many, sir. It's no good. They're coming in from Germany. They're coming in from Japan. Sir, we can't take it anymore. We can't take the jobs. We can't take the money that we're making. We never made so much damn money. Everybody wants us to work there, sir. They're paying us anything. Please stop, sir. We can't take it anymore. Remember we used to do that with winning. You're going to win so much, and I'd have one of your senators. I'd have cash come in. I'd have all these guys come in. They'd probably have to send Sheriff Joe because he's the one that gets to me better than anybody, probably. They'll send, and Sheriff Joe and Brandon and Carrie, they'll all come in and they'll say, sir, remember, We're winning too much, sir. We can't take it. Because we've been a loser for so long. And we used to joke, and we weren't joking because we were winning like we never won before. Our economy became the best economy we've ever had. We were doubling up on China. China paid us hundreds of billions of dollars in taxes and tariffs. No other president got 10 cents from China. And I got along with them great until COVID, and then I said, that's a bridge too far. I will end the war in Ukraine, stop the chaos in the Middle East, and prevent World War III. I will crush violent crime and give our police the support, protection, resources, and respect that they so dearly deserve. That includes you guys, okay? That includes, does that include us? Yeah, you're top of the list. We will strengthen and modernize our military. You know, I rebuilt the entire U.S. military. Now we have to do it. I didn't know that they were going to give such a big chunk for no reason whatsoever to Afghanistan. Tanks, planes, even goggles, the best goggles. Now they became night fighters. Isn't that wonderful? But we gave them 777,000 guns and rifles. Think of that. First of all, how many did they need? 777,000 guns, 70,000 cars and vehicles. Many of them are armor plated, cost millions of dollars to build them. And they have them, and they just had a parade 3 weeks ago. Did you see going down their main thoroughfare? It wasn't particularly beautiful. And they were showing off all the equipment. Did you see that? It was disgusting to me. I look at that, I get disgusted and angry. Sometimes, you know, I make these speeches and we try and make the best out of a bad situation, but sometimes I get very angry by the end because I say, it's really crazy. You know, you go over the things they did, like the border, but you go over the things and you get damn angry because they're just grossly incompetent. They've actually destroyed. We're going to stop it. We're going to turn it around. But what they've done toward the destruction of our country is it's not even believable. It's not thinkable. We'll build a missile defense shield, all of it made in the USA. We're entitled to it too. It was our technology. And we will rebuild our cities, including our once beautiful capital. Right now it's got graffiti all over the beautiful marble. It's got the medians falling down on our roads. It's got potholes all over the place. We're going to take over our capital. We're going to make it so beautiful. We'll have a committee. We'll get rid of these people that are allowing crime to flourish. You can't go there. It's so dangerous. We're going to rebuild our cities. We're going to make our cities great again, too. Our cities are suffering tremendously. We will get critical race theory and transgender insanity out of our schools. And we will keep men out of women's sports. I guarantee you that. I will defend the Second Amendment, protect religious liberty, restore free speech, and we will secure our elections and they will be secure once and for all. Under the Trump administration, we will put American citizens first, American children first, American patients first, American taxpayers first, American workers first, and American communities first. We will put them first. We love those people. And we will put communists, Marxists, and fascists last. And we'll keep them there too. We're going to put them last and keep them there. We will defend our territory. We will defend our families. We will defend our communities. We will defend our civilization. We will not be conquered. We will not be occupied. We will not be invaded. We will reclaim our sovereignty. We will reclaim our nation. And I will give you back your freedom and your life. We're going to give you back your freedom. Everyone will prosper. Every family will thrive, and every day will be filled with opportunity and hope. But for that to happen, we must defeat Kamala Harris and stop her radical left agenda once and for all. And we want a landslide election, and I believe something's brewing like that. That's too big to rig, too big to rig. Early voting is underway. Get everyone you know and get out and vote. We cannot take a chance. After all we have been through together, we've been through so much. We stand on the verge of the 4 greatest years of the history of our country. We're going to make them the 4 greatest years in the history of our country. With your help, from now until Election Day, we will redeem America's promise, and we will take back the nation that we love. Nothing will sway us, nothing will slow us, and no one will stop us. We will press forward toward our magnificent American destiny, and together we will win, win, win. November 5th will be the most important day in the history of our country, and together we will make America powerful again. We will make America wealthy again. Wealthy, wealthy, wealthy. We will make America healthy again. We will make America strong again. We will make America proud again. We will make America safe again. And we will make America great again. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning into the live show. God bless you. God bless you. God bless you. Double tap your screen. Subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we just heard the legendary 45th. Some people say he might be the 47th. Right now, we're gonna listen to the Vice President of the United States. We're gonna listen to the Vice President of the United States right now. She also had a rally in North Carolina. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe to the channel. If you haven't liked the live show, like the live show. It is what it is. We listen to both sides. Even if I am voting for Trump, even if I am voting for Donald J. Trump, we're still going to listen to both sides, okay? All right, let's listen to Kamala Harris, the current Vice President of the United States in North Carolina. Let's get it.
And it's so wonderful to be back in North Carolina. Thank you. It's so good to see you. And thank you. And I want to thank this is an auditorium packed with incredible leaders. And I thank you all for taking the time this Sunday afternoon with all that you have done. Thank you all. I want to also thank State Senator Smith, State Senator Hunt, your next Lieutenant Governor, Congressman Davis, a proud graduate of ECU, and let's elect Josh Stein as your next governor. Governor Cooper are not here today because they've been working around the clock dealing with the hurricane recovery efforts. And we want to always thank them and all the incredible local, state, and federal leaders who have been working together for North Carolina. I was here 8 days ago in the aftermath of Hurricane Helene, and since then, of course, another powerful storm, Hurricane Milton, cut a path of destruction through Florida. And our hearts, I know, all of us, and our prayers go out to everyone who's been impacted by these storms. I have spoken to both state and local officials, both Republican and Democrat, to let them know we will be with you every step of the way as you recover. Because in times like this, we stand together as one nation. That is who we are.
are nearing the home stretch. Now listen, let me just say, I know we are really excited to see each other. I couldn't be more excited to see everybody here, but I'm going to tell you, it's going to be a tight race until the very end. And we are running as the underdog, so we have some hard work ahead of us, but we like hard work. Hard work is good work. And with your help in 23 days, we will win. One of the reasons is that we all know, and we are gathered here together, because we know this election really is about two very different visions for our nation. One is focused on the past, the other ours focused on the future. Ours is a campaign focused on issues that matter, for example, to working families across America, like bringing down the cost of living, investing in small businesses and entrepreneurs. How many small business owners do we have here? Thank you. We are focused on protecting reproductive freedom. Keeping our nation secure. But none of that is what we hear from Donald Trump. Instead, from him, we are just hearing from that same old tired playbook. He has no plan for how he would address the needs of the American people. He is only focused on himself. And he's not, but here's the thing, North Carolina, and he's not being transparent with the voters. He's not being transparent. So check this out. He refuses to release his medical records. I've done it. Every other presidential candidate in modern era has done it. He is unwilling to do a 60 Minutes interview. Like every other major party candidate has done for more than half a century. He is unwilling to meet for a second debate. And here's the thing, it makes you wonder, why does his staff want him to hide away? One must question, are they afraid that people will see that he is too weak and unstable to lead America? Is that what's going on? So folks, for these reasons and so many more, it is time to turn the page. It is time to turn the page because America is ready to chart a new way forward, ready for a new and optimistic generation of leadership.
Wait, ladies and gentlemen, double tap your screen, subscribe to the channel. Are we currently listening to the same thing? Because I don't even, because it's like, wait, is she talking about herself when she talks about Donald Trump, or because everything she's talking about is about Trump is actually about her? What's going on here?
Which is why Democrats, Independents, and Republicans are supporting our campaign. Because they and we know we need a president who works for all the American people. the story of my entire career. I have only ever had one client, the people. As a young courtroom prosecutor, I stood up for women and children against predators. As Attorney General of California, I took on the big banks and delivered $20 billion from middle-class families who faced foreclosure. I stood up for veterans and students being scammed by the big for-profit colleges. I've stood up for workers being cheated out of the wages they were due. Stood up for seniors facing elder abuse. And as president, it is my pledge to you that I will always fight for all the American people. And together, we will build a brighter future for our nation. And that future includes building what I call an opportunity economy, where everyone can compete and have a real chance to succeed. Under my economic plan, we will bring down the cost of housing and help first-time home buyers with a $25,000 down payment assistance. We will expand Medicare to cover home health care for seniors, so more seniors can live at home with dignity, and give more support to the sandwich generation, to those of you who are raising young children and taking care of your parents. And look, I just have to say something about home health care and the need that I know so many people have for help. Look, so when my mother was sick, after she had been diagnosed with cancer, I took care of her. And for those of you who have taken care of somebody who needs that kind of help, it's about trying to cook something that they have a taste for and want to eat. It's about trying to find something that they can wear that is not irritating their skin and is soft enough. It's about trying from time to time to figure out something you can do to just bring a smile to their face or make them laugh. Right? It's the work that is about giving folks dignity. But far too many people on this issue of home health care, if you need the support to give that care to your family member, it means either paying down and losing as much as you can to be able to afford to have Medicaid, or having to leave your job, which means cutting off a very important part of your income, just to give people in your life the dignity and the support they deserve. That's why I'm saying we're going to have Medicare cover that home health care to help you. We will lower costs, including on everything from health care to groceries. I will take on corporate price gouging. I've done it before and I'll do it again. Give a middle-class tax cut to 100 million Americans, including $6,000 during the first year of your child's life, knowing that the vast majority of parents have a natural desire to parent their children well, but not always the resources to be able to do it. And so extending the child tax credit to $6,000 to give folks the ability to be able to buy that car seat or that crib in that most fundamental phase of their child's development. So all this to say, I will always put the middle class and working people first. The middle class, and I will never forget where I come from. Now, Donald Trump, well, he has a different plan. Just Google Project 2025. It is a detailed and dangerous blueprint for what he will do if he is elected president. Donald Trump will give billionaires and corporations massive tax cuts. cut Social Security and Medicare, make it easier for companies to deny overtime pay for workers. He would get rid of that $35 cap on insulin for seniors. He would impose what I call a Trump sales tax, a 20% tax on everyday basic necessities, which will cost the average American family $4,000 more a year. And on top of all of this, Donald Trump intends to end the Affordable Care Act. And he has no plan to replace it. Did you see the debate? He has concepts of a plan. Insurance coverage of 45 million people based on a concept? Come on. And take us back to when insurance companies had the power to deny people with pre-existing conditions. You know where I'm going. Well, we are not going back. No, we're not. No, we're not. No, we're not.
Thank you for tuning in one more time. Double tap your screen, subscribe to the channel. This is what I'll say, and this is just my opinion, okay? You don't have to believe it or you don't have to take it. I will choose Donald J. Trump's concept over a plan from her. My opinion. You don't have to, you can say whatever you want to say. You have the freedom to believe what you believe. This is my own opinion. I choose Donald J. Trump concept because I know the concept is going to work. Yeah, than this lady right here. Because this is the result of what we have right now. We have the highest prices. My electricity bill was like $79, $75 or something like that. Now it's $235 a month. Bro. Yeah, I'll take the concept.
Because we will move forward. Ours is a fight for the future, and it is a fight for freedom. Like the fundamental freedom of a woman to be able to make decisions about her own body and not have her government telling her what to do. Because we know Donald Trump hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade, and they did as he intended. And now, more than 1 in 3 women in America lives in a state with a Trump abortion ban, including right here in North Carolina. Many of these bans have no exceptions, even for rape and incest, which is immoral to tell a survivor of a violation to their body that they have no right to make a decision about what happens to their body next. That's immoral. And let us agree, one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree it shouldn't be the government telling her what to do. Not the government. If she chooses, she will talk with her priest, her pastor, her rabbi, her imam, but not the government telling her what to do. And when Congress passes a bill to restore reproductive freedom, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. Proudly. And North Carolina, across our nation, I'm telling you, I'm traveling, we are witnessing a full-on assault on other hard.
This right here is something I need to ask you guys. How did we get here? This is someone who, like, months ago, years ago, we were asking, who is the vice president of the United States? And now we're here. How did we get here? And you guys need to understand, this has been the vice president for almost 4 years, and she is the first woman president of the United States. Because most people, when you talk to them, especially, beautiful women of the United States, they're going to say, well, we want to vote for her because we want to inspire our children, our girl daughters, our daughters. So my reply is usually, well, she's the first woman president of the United States, first woman vice president of the United States. But your daughter doesn't know her name. He doesn't know her name, but you think they're gonna know her name when she becomes the president?
I'm gonna be the president.
That's right, you're gonna be the president.
Fought hard-won fundamental freedoms and rights, like the freedom to vote, the freedom to be safe from gun violence, the freedom to love who you love openly and with pride. So much is on the line in this election, and this is not 2016. The stakes are even higher because a few months ago, the United States Supreme Court basically told the former president that he would effectively be immune from whatever he does in office. But let's think about that. You know, y'all have heard me say, I do believe Donald Trump is an unserious man. But the effects of him being back in the White House would be brutally serious. Just imagine Donald Trump with no guardrails. He who has vowed, if reelected, he would be a dictator on day one. That he would weaponize the Department of Justice against his political enemies. He has called for the, quote, termination. Wait, hold on, because here's the thing. Let's let the courts handle that, and let's handle November. We'll handle November. How about?
Once again, shout out to everybody on the live stream. God bless you. Brian Champagne says, well, Genesis, bro, you're terrible at this. Just give it up. But you are here listening. What are you even doing here? You could just scroll, go to the page that you get your information from. But you're here, bro. Man. Brian, would you like to be blocked or would you like to keep scrolling? Two choices, bro. Double tap your screen, subscribe to the channel. Let's listen to the Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris.
Because listen, here's why, this is what we know. Anybody who wants to be president of the United States, who has called for the, quote, termination of the Constitution of the United States, should never again have the ability to stand behind the seal of the President of the United States. Never again. Never again. And the people who know him best know it. His former national security advisor, two of his former defense secretaries, his former chief of staff in the White House, his own vice president, have all warned America Donald Trump is unfit to serve. Or just listen most recently to what we heard General Milley said. General Milley, former chairman of the Joint Chiefs under Donald Trump, it was just reported, he said, quote, no one has ever been as dangerous to this country, in referring to Donald Trump. Think about that. Think about that. And we can already see the harm he's up to as a candidate. Most recently, spreading disinformation in the wake of natural disasters. Blocking real solutions that would stop drug cartels from crossing the border when he tried to kill and did that border security deal. Because you see, Donald Trump cares more about scaring people, creating fear, running on a problem instead of what real leaders do, which is to participate in fixing problems. Well, I care about fixing problems. And as President of the United States, I will be focused each and every day on solving problems that affect you and your family. So North Carolina, it all comes down to this. We are here together this Sunday afternoon.
So fix it. She just said she is very concerned about fixing the problem. So fix the problem. Oh, wait. You need a promotion first. You need to be promoted to fix the problem. Is that what you're saying? I don't think so now.
Because we know what is at stake. We are here together this Sunday afternoon because we love our country. We love our country. Yes. That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right. We love our country. And I do believe it is one of the highest forms of patriotism to then fight for the ideals of our country and to fight to realize the promise of America. The promise of America. So Election Day is in 23 days, and in just 4 days, early voting will begin statewide. Starting Thursday, you can go to the polls and cast your ballot. If you haven't already registered to vote, you could do it right then and there. Register to vote and vote. And so now is the time to make your plan to vote. And if you've not received your ballot in the mail, look for it, because if you have, I would like you to fill it out right away. Please don't wait. Because to my friends, I say, look, the election is here. The election is here. And remember always that your vote is your voice, and your voice is your power. And so, North Carolina, today I then ask you, are you ready to make your voices heard? Do we believe in freedom? Do we believe in opportunity? Do we believe in the promise of America? And are we ready to fight for it? And when we fight, we win.
Ladies and gentlemen, we just listened to the Vice President of the United States. There you have it. Do you believe in the promise of America? So she says. And are you ready to fight for it? And when you fight, you win. So she says, all right. Thank you for tuning in one more time. Double tap your screen, subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed. And if you haven't smashed that like button, smash the like button, support the channel. Okay, so I don't know if you guys have heard, but there has been rumors of a third attempt on former President Trump. I don't know if you've heard it, but we're going to actually watch that right now. It's like a breaking news. This happened 10 hours ago. Riverside Sheriff says arrest at Trump's rally probably prevented the third attempt on the former president. Let's check that right out.
We all good? Everyone ready? Good afternoon. Thank you all for coming here today. I am Chad Bianco. I'm the Sheriff of Riverside County, and we are obviously here to talk about an incident that occurred yesterday at the rally that former President Trump had in Coachella. There has been a lot of media stir beginning last night with social media and further on today about the arrest, and so I am here to give you as much information as I can. I will answer all of the questions that you have. Keep in mind that the information that I'm going to give you may not be all of the information that I have, but because of what we're doing and because of the investigation that will obviously continue concerning this, there are some things that I cannot give you or that I will not give you, but I will do everything I can to answer your questions. So to begin with, yesterday afternoon, before former President Trump arrived to the rally, we made contact with an individual on the inner perimeter of our operation at the rally. As you can imagine, this was a very large event. In regard to previous attempts on the former president's life, this was not something that we were taking lightly. We had a very detailed plan in place on how we were going to keep not only the former president safe, but all of the participants or the attendees of the rally safe. So in general terms, I will tell you that we had a larger outside perimeter and then an inside perimeter that was completely controlled by us, by Riverside County Sheriff's deputies, and both of them served different purposes. We did not keep residents from their homes. We did not keep people that were traveling through the area from going through if they had a legitimate reason to go through. So the outside perimeter was basically to allow people in that we thought belonged there. The inside perimeter was to make sure and to make sure people were proceeding in the right direction. The way it worked yesterday is only people that were allowed inside the perimeter, the outside perimeter, in a vehicle was if you lived there or if you had documentation that said you were going to this rally in the form of an email with VIP credentials or press credentials. Those vehicles were allowed in. There were no other vehicles allowed. So that outside perimeter are I will give you his name. The name that we have, and I'm going to put an asterisk by it as I explain this later, but we have his name as Vem, V-E-M, Miller, M-I-L-L-E-R, and his birth date is 10/26 of 1974. And the reason why I gave it to you like that is I will explain later. He approached the outside perimeter, gave all indications that he belonged there, that he was that he was a participant that was allowed to get into VIP and to and a press corps, and so he was allowed through that outer perimeter. As he got to the inside perimeter, where deputies were conducting obviously a more thorough evaluation of the vehicles that were coming in, there were many irregularities that popped up. The deputy noticed that the interior of the vehicle was in quite disarray. The vehicle had an obviously fake license plate, and that prompted further investigation from our deputy into why the person was there and what he was doing. During that investigation, the deputy eventually found multiple passports with multiple names, multiple driver's license with different names. The vehicle was unregistered, and the license plate was what we in law enforcement would recognize as one that is homemade and indicative of a group of individuals that claim to be sovereign citizens, and assuming the deputy assumes that he was part of that identifying group. So during the investigation, the person was taken into custody. He was eventually booked into jail on those charges, and eventually he was released. He will have to further his court case in the future. Right now, we are actively engaged in working with Secret Service and the FBI to ensure that this person is followed up on and all of the information that they can gather. I can tell you that from my perspective, from a state law enforcement agency's perspective, the firearms charges is what we arrested him for and booked him on. Anything further will come from the federal government, and quite frankly, I don't know if we will be a part of that. We will certainly be a part of that investigation and cooperating with them, but those charges, if any, will come from them. They will not come from us. With that being said, is there any questions? Yes, sir.
Sheriff, we talked to Mr. Miller this afternoon, and he said the accusations or the belief that he planned to assassinate President Trump were, quote, complete bullshit. He said that he had a special access pass that was issued to him by a Republican group in Clark County, Nevada, and that when he rolled up to the checkpoint, he told the deputies that, in his words, as a courtesy, that he had firearms in the trunk of his car. Do you have a comment on what he said?
I will not comment on what he said or specifics that we learned or gained from our contact with him. Quite frankly, I'm not really concerned with the statement that he gave the media after he was released from custody. I can tell, well, because it's irrelevant to me. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, there were a minimum of 25,000 people that entered past those deputies into that location that had legitimate identification and weren't carrying guns. So I will just go from there. Yes, ma'am.
What about what happened led you to that conclusion and that statement, given what you just explained about what you saw in the car and everything?
Yeah, so basically, I honestly, I will be honest with you, I don't remember saying that, but it certainly would be something I did say because it's something that in the last 12 hours we've talked about extensively of what happened. Thank God. And by an act of really what we did in the week leading up to keeping that place secure, I certainly wouldn't want to be saying after the fact that I wish we would have done something to prevent that shooting. And there is absolutely no way that any of us are going to truly know what was in his head. I can tell you that none of the other probably 50,000 people that showed up yesterday for that event brought multiple passports with different names and guns. And if there is any further statement about whether or not he belonged there, the statement of him saying that he was given credentials to be there by someone else, that's not up to me to decide. I mean, we didn't arrest him for going inside the facility. We arrested him for having guns, illegal guns in his car. What his frame of mind was, all we can do is speculate, unless we truly just want to believe anything that he tells us.
I guess it's just, given everything that's happened leading up to in this presidential campaign so far, it's just quite a dramatic statement to make, given what we've seen so far. I mean,
A dramatic statement for me to make?
Well, just, yes. I mean, I guess there wasn't any,
So this is what I'm glad of. This is what I am very glad of. I know that the presence that we had at the rally with deputies, with snipers, with counter snipers, and Secret Service snipers and counter snipers, I am glad that we're not talking about this after we shot him. We get to talk about it before, and no matter what, it's all going to be speculation about what his intentions were getting there. What we do know is he showed up with multiple passports with different names, an unregistered vehicle with fake license plate, and loaded firearms. If you're asking me right now, I probably did have deputies that prevented the third assassination attempt. If we are that politically lost, that we have lost sight of common sense and reality and reason, that we can't say that, holy crap, what did he show up with all of that stuff for and loaded guns, and I'm going to be accused of being dramatic. We have a serious, serious problem in this country, because this is common sense and reason. I saw some of you there yesterday. You didn't have guns and fake IDs. I don't know how else to explain it.
Sharon, you were talking about the two perimeters and how, the one checkpoint and the inner one. I'm just curious, did he have the proper credentials to get past those? Did that check out? It was just what was in the car that was the red flag, but the credentials perhaps checked out with the deputies to get that access.
So if you went there, the credentials are come out at the very last minute, and they are very, very vague. So there's actually 3 different points of contact and entry. We had an outer perimeter, an inner perimeter, and then you still have to go through Secret Service metal detectors and final big screening to actually get inside the facility. And that is where they would verify whether those were real. And to be honest with you, that thing that you have on your phone, it's all whether or not they have you on a list. It's not just showing up with a piece of paper and saying, I'm in. It's whether or not you really did apply through that website to get in. Secret Service does an extremely good job of trying to pre-vet people that are trying to get those tickets to get inside the...
And I'm sure this is probably part of the investigation, but did he say why he had all these passports, the deputies, what all this was?
No. And then one thing about I will confirm, just because it was said of what him saying that someone else gave him a pass. Well, you don't get to give away passes to go to a rally of a former president or even the vice president going to her rallies. We don't get to share those things. I can't share it with my spouse, let alone with friends. So all of those things are red flags for us going in. None of those things made sense. So it wasn't that we could verify individual documents that we had, because there really isn't those things. And that would have been done at the final checkpoint going through that is completely run by Secret Service.
Sure. Can you confirm that this suspect here, I know you all are currently investigating him, looking into his past. He's a member of the Republican Party and previously ran for state assembly in Nevada. Second part of the question, have you heard from the Trump campaign, Secret Service, in response to the actions that your deputies took?
I'll take the last one first. It was we certainly are still in contact with Secret Service and the FBI, because this is obviously something that occurred that we'll be continuing to go till we get to the bottom of it, until there's a resolution to the entire thing. The second thing and the second and third thing, I knew this was going to happen. I couldn't care less what political party he belongs to. I honestly, I think that's the stupidest thing in the world, that we have to label something and we're labeling this as politics. He was a lunatic. He was, from my perspective in law enforcement, it's that group, if in fact it turns out that he is part of the sovereign citizens group, they are certainly considered a far-right group. I wouldn't, in my own personal belief, I wouldn't say it's a militant group. It's just a group that doesn't believe in government and government control. They don't believe that the government and laws apply to them. So I think it's fringe one way or the other. I couldn't care less. It's people trying to do harm, and thank God we prevented it.
Can I ask one other just clarifying question?
Yes.
Was every single car that was entering the space, and I apologize if I wasn't there, so I wasn't sure about the setup, but was every single car checked? This was the only car that drew attention yesterday. Is that accurate?
Well, I'm sure there were multiple cars that drew attention, but and every single vehicle that made it into the actual event, every single vehicle was checked. he did not make it into the event. He made it to our interior perimeter that was maybe 100, 200 yards away from the actual interior perimeter. So he didn't get to the point where Secret Service would find him. We identified him, detained him, and eventually arrested him before he got to the actual event entrance.
And that was about 100 to 200 yards before the entrance?
Please don't quote me on that, but yes. I mean, I think it's roughly, as I'm trying to imagine the entrance and where he was, I think it's about a quarter of a mile. 250 yards, maybe. I'm not 100% sure.
President Trump mentioned you and your family there during the rally. How close were you sitting to him, and who other, you don't have to name them by name, but did you have other family members with you?
I did have my family members there, and we were lucky enough and gracious enough to have VIP seating, so we were relatively close.
About how far would you think?
How far away was I from him?
Right.
40 yards.
Thinking back to what might have happened, do you feel concerned for your safety or your family's safety now?
I will tell you, as the sheriff of Riverside County, and knowing what we know going into this event, that there had been 2 attempts on our former president's life, and the amount of people that were going to be coming to this in such a short notice, what my team was able to do and what we did for the goers to this event, for the attendees, I was completely confident that there was absolutely nothing going to happen inside that facility, and I am extremely, or inside that venue, and I am extremely proud of what the deputies did and the buy-in, the personal buy-in that they took upon themselves to ensure the safety of our former president and the attendees of that rally. I was not concerned for myself at any point.
Even after the fact, knowing that this guy was there?
It was our intent to make sure that there was an outside perimeter and an inside perimeter, that no one that did not belong there, that intended to do him harm or anyone else harm, would be allowed inside that event. And we did exactly what we had hoped for. And in hindsight, looking back, the planning that my team did and the actions of my deputies into this is exactly what we had hoped for. And we know that we prevented something bad from happening, and it's irrelevant what that bad was going to be.
Were there any adjustments to security after the discovery was made, especially with so many people leaving this large-scale event and the traffic backups and everything? Did you guys readjust what you were doing in terms of security?
No, I will tell you that when I was told that we had made an arrest and the brief particulars of what the arrest was, what it involved, I really, my first thought was, we did everything right. It worked. I was told where it was. I knew it was an outside perimeter, and I was not concerned at all. I was not concerned for anyone else's safety. I knew that the precautions that we put in, the measures that we put in, did exactly what they were supposed to do. The other part of your question, the aftermath, the people leaving, I cannot tell you. I've been told way too many times today and in the middle of the night that it didn't go very smoothly. There was a lot of people trying to leave at the same time, and logistically, it wasn't it wasn't conducive to going smoothly. And as far as we know, there were no injuries, there were no incidents, there was no neighbors called to complain or anything like that. And as far as I know, everyone made it home safely. So 2 different questions there, or parts to it. But we did not do anything different. I will say, I take that back. We did. There were a lot of people that have complained or that have said or wondered why there are deputies in riot gear. We had deputies that were off-site that were ready for something, to respond to something should something happen, and they were never intended to come inside the facility unless that happened. Afterward, when everything was over and it was obvious there were problems with people leaving, with people trying to get over fences and those types of issues, we did bring those deputies in just as extra help in funneling people out. There was never any. The only odd part about that was they were prepared all day in their riot gear, if you want to call it that, and that's how they showed up. It was, I mean, we got them there as quick as they could. There was never any. We certainly didn't treat it like a riot situation. It wasn't. Everyone was very orderly in their efforts to leave, and we just ensured that no one got hurt or everyone stayed out of the street, stay on the sides, and everything was orderly. But other than that, everything was fine. And as we went throughout the day yesterday, we didn't change anything.
Sheriff, can I ask you a question? How many guns were found? How much ammunition was found? What charges were filed? When is the arraignment? Anything else related to it?
There were 2 guns and multiple boxes of ammunition for both. There was a handgun and a shotgun. And he was cited for the gun. They were unregistered firearms, so he was cited for the unregistered loaded firearms in a vehicle, and he was those are state crimes, and he was released on those crimes. He was booked into jail and released with a promise to appear at a future date in court. And I'm sorry, I don't know what that date is. I'm sure on our Jim's information it will show when his next court date is.
You said he showed a fake press pass that you found to be fake or anything. What affiliation did that press pass have, and how did you know it was fake?
Semantically, I can't comment on whether or not there is an actual physical fake pass. He claimed to be a journalist, and he claimed to have VIP status at the event that got him into the perimeter. And then when that investigation was continued by the deputy, that didn't necessarily materialize. So other than his words of saying he was a journalist and that he was there as a media, I can't tell you that that he gave us a document that said I'm the media, and we said that was fake.
Were you able to verify that Instagram account that I mentioned to you that's his?
As of yet, I have not. I know they're working on it, and someone may have tried to tell me, but I didn't bring my phone, and that's how they would have notified me. I know we're actively trying to track that down, as well as Secret Service and the FBI. But our investigation is relatively done. The continuation will be a cooperation between us, the Secret Service, and the FBI. More than likely, federal charges like that would be headed by the FBI. I can't say that for sure, but it's a combination of all three. And I will say the working relationship and the effort that we all, the federal agencies and the sheriff's office, put into this going in was seamless. The communication is great. I have no complaints, and it's certainly, by me telling you it's someone else's investigation, that's just the nature of a federal crime. If they are ever able to prove that it was assassination attempt, and I'm not saying they're going to be able to, but anything like that would be federal. The state crimes are the weapons charges that we arrested him for.
Somebody posted on social media that both you and he were apparently coincidentally at a premiere of a movie, Line in the Sand, some title like that. You don't know this guy, do you? You've never met him or anything.
No, I do not. I have absolutely no idea.
When you originally stated his name, you said it was Vanasco.
So yes, and maybe I just didn't emphasize that enough at the end. So the name that he has given us is Vem Miller. That's what he was booked under. But he had multiple passports and IDs with different names.
And then also you stated at the event there was 25,000 people. The later you said 50,000. We have a better count of how many?
We don't have a total yet. There are two different numbers, though, because of the amount of people that were actually made it inside the venue. And then the way it works is once the former president takes the stage, nothing else moves. So if you weren't in by then, you did not get in. And we do know that there were plenty of pre-screenings that had happened at parking lots before, and we know that there were multiple thousands of people that did not get in based on timing. So we have an idea of how many people were inside and outside, and we don't have an exact number. But that's the reason why I would have said two different things.
You talked about this group,
sovereign citizens. It's a I don't know any in a law enforcement world. That's what we call them. That's what they call themselves, sovereign citizens. And it's just a political belief, if you will, that that government rules and laws and everything else that goes along with it doesn't apply to them.
So this is an organized group, and this group, they have a lot of members here in Riverside County?
I won't say they have a lot. Law enforcement across the country, we train on how to deal with them just because of the verbiage that they use when they interact with us. They believe that they're not necessarily toward us violent or confrontational, but it's obvious they don't ever want to answer our questions. They don't believe they need driver's licenses. They don't believe, and this vehicle goes along with it. They don't register their vehicles. This was an unregistered car that we had to go through VIN number and manufacturer process to verify that it was a legitimate car. It actually did belong to him. It's just, we know it was sold to him. It just was not ever registered.
Have they shown a propensity for violence?
Sometimes they do, but I can't say as an organization as a whole. But obviously, like a lot of different groups, bad apples give a group a bad name. And there certainly are people that are, but I'm not going to say that group as a whole is a violent group.
And I do understand what you said earlier about you don't know what this was or what it might have been, but when you see a vehicle with 2 guns, boxes of ammunition, different license plates and passports, and somebody claims to be with this group that you've described as being right-wing, first thing that goes through your mind is what?
I need to thank that deputy for doing his job. That was the first thing that went through my mind. And it was like I probably said to somebody or around somebody that's been either printed or reprinted in social media that I truly do believe that we prevented another assassination attempt. And it was solely by our effort of keeping those type of people out.
It's also said that he had a high-capacity magazine that he used for the shotgun as a street sweeper exit or for the pistol.
It was for the handgun. The high-capacity magazine was for the handgun.
It's different names on the passports, and I think, did you also say driver's licenses?
Yes.
Were these like tiny variations of the name, or like, red and brown?
I won't get into specifics, but it was both of the question that you're asking.
Okay. Any details about another individual linked to a potential bomb threat at the event as well?
We know that there were, no, not linked to an individual or specifics that I can give you. We are aware of our dogs and federal dogs that hit on people or things that we ended up not letting in, but I don't have any specifics on anything like that. There was nothing that rose to this level. Anything else? Okay, thank you for coming.
Thank you for tuning into the live show one more time. Double tap your screen, subscribe to the channel. What do I think about this guy? He may just have, I guess, stage fright. Probably doesn't do this every time, like me, However, the more you do stuff, the more you get confident. The more you get confident about it. So, all right, let's listen to what CNN is talking about. Who knows, bro? Who knows?
Tuesday marks 3 weeks until the presidential election, and you might be surprised to hear where Donald Trump held a rally last night. Very blue, California, where he needled Kamala Harris in her home state and warned Governor Gavin Newsom over disaster relief. Here with me now from Florida is Congressman Byron Donalds, a supporter of Donald Trump. We have a lot to get to. I want to start with your state of Florida. Hurricane Milton devastated the state generally and parts of your district as well. President Biden is in Florida today. How is your community doing?
We're recovering. We need power to be restored. I know work crews, I know different power companies are working round the clock to do that. There are people in my district, but I know throughout Florida, who took on flooding in their homes. So they're in the process now of having to, get the muck out of their houses and try to rebuild. For some of my residents, they just finished rebuilding from Hurricane Ian 2 years ago, and now they have to restart that process. So that's very devastating for those families, and we're going to be with them every step of the way. In terms of just restoration for Southwest Florida in particular, once we get power back on throughout the entire county, we'll finish the rebuilding process once again.
Well, Congressman, as you were just talking about the devastation there from a natural disaster last night, the former president threatened to withhold wildfire aid from California over the state's water and environmental rules. Listen to what he said.
We're going to take care of our farmers. We're going to take care of your water situation. And we'll force it down his throat. And we'll say, Gavin, if you don't do it, we're not giving you any of that fire money that we send you all the time for all the forest fires that you have.
Are you comfortable with that, particularly given how you are seeing firsthand how important it is for federal help in a time of natural disaster?
Well, actually, Dana, this is a great question. I think when you look at Florida versus California, taking in hurricane force winds and massive flooding is one thing. There's not much the state of Florida can do to prevent that. You compare that with California's environmental policy. A lot of their forest fires are mostly caused because the state of California blocks the management of their lands. They don't clear the underbrush. We do that here in Florida, which is why you don't have the major issues of massive forest fires raging through our state. But California doesn't do the simple work of clearing underbrush. So who that really puts at risk are the citizens of California. And this is, in my view, radical environmental policy, decades long in that state. And so what ends up happening is that taxpayers have to foot the bill for this every single year.
Well,
I think what Donald Trump is really getting
Florida,
at is that California should actually take care of this problem as well.
As you know,
it is very different, but if you leave fuel on the ground in terms of branches and underbrush, it does contribute to larger forest fires. It simply does.
So are you saying that you're comfortable with President Trump saying that if he is elected again, he will withhold federal aid for fires in California?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not comfortable with that, and I think Congress is going to weigh in on this heavily. And of course, we're going to do what needs to be done. But
So
California does have to look at their land management issues in the future. They have to look at that, Dana, and we have to be responsible with the dollars that the federal government is going to be spending. We're always going to be there for the American people. Make no mistake about that. But California does need to have a responsibility to clean up their lands.
Let me turn to the topic of what Kamala Harris is doing this coming week, particularly Monday and Tuesday. She's got several events courting black voters. I know that you are talking about the black vote coming out, particularly black men, for Donald Trump. You're trying to help him along with that. To that point, can you talk specifically about what Donald Trump would do policy-wise in a second term to help black Americans?
Sure, and thank you for that question. What Donald Trump is going to do is going to be actually quite similar to what he did in his first term. When you lower tax rates, when you cut these reckless and crazy policies that are now in the Kamala Harris administration, and you cut those regulations down, what it does is it frees up the ability for businesses to thrive, for people to be able to earn more money, for them to be able to keep more money in their pockets. All of his economic policies actually have a stabilizing effect on prices, and they grow our economy. You couple that with his energy policies. He calls it drill, baby, drill, but what it is being energy dominant in the United States of America. That also allows for us to put a cap on these massive price increases under the Kamala Harris administration. What that means in particular for black families is that you have an ability to earn more money, keep more money, wages actually growing when you adjust them for inflation. And then the big stat, and this happened during the first Trump administration, nobody likes to talk about it. I heard Senator Warnock mention it. Wages adjusted for inflation were massively up under Donald Trump for black men, for black families, but for all Americans. The wage gap that Democrats love to lecture about, The wage gap in 2019 was actually shrinking under Donald Trump's administration, his economic policies, his energy policies, and his regulatory
Can I just
policies.
go back to the tax
So that's the agenda that black men are looking at.
Okay, thank you for that. The tax cut question.
Say again, go ahead.
I would imagine that Kamala Harris would say or would ask the question about how tax cuts for wealthy Americans will help the black community. What's the answer to that?
Well, Kamala Harris would say something like that, but we know that she's wrong because economically she's been wrong for the last 1,400 days. If you look at Tax Cut and Jobs Act, it cut tax rates across the board, mostly for middle-class families. So this is why wages adjusted for inflation for black families was higher under Donald Trump than any other administration in the history of our country. That is a record of economic success.
Let me just quickly play for you what former President Obama said exactly on this question of the economy a couple of days ago.
Yeah, it was pretty good because it was my economy. It wasn't something he did. I had spent 8 years cleaning up the mess that the Republicans had left me the last time. He didn't do nothing except those big tax cuts.
How do you respond to that?
Very easily. I was working in finance during Barack Obama's administration. Let me tell you, the economy under his especially the last 5 years, was growing at about 1 to 1.5% per year. I think at the time, President Obama was saying that, this era of large economic growth is something of the past. We're going to have a more consistent economy. Well, in his words, a consistent economy meant one that barely grew. So when Donald Trump came in, he brought his tax cut policy in, which cut taxes across the board for everybody in our country, coupled the fact that he did cut massive regulations from the Obama administration. And what did we see? Economic growth in the United States went from 1.5% under Barack Obama to 3.5% under Donald Trump. Wages adjusted for inflation, like I said, because it's the truth, increased for every subgroup of Americans in our country. The wealth gap was closing. We were actually booming economically far more than we did under Barack Obama. So that's a cool statement he made on the stump, but it's not true.
Congressman, before I let you go, I do want to ask about a law that Congress passed, a new version of the Electoral Count Act. They passed it 2 years ago, and it makes it harder to object to certifying election results on January 6, 2025 and beyond. Some Trump allies have argued that's unconstitutional. The House Speaker hasn't taken a clear position. Should Congress follow that law in certifying the 2024 presidential election?
Look, I think when you're talking about the election this November, the thing that people want is that local jurisdictions follow the law passed by the states. As long as everybody does that, there's not going to be any problem certifying this election this November. But what really matters about this election are the issues facing the American people, not the Electoral College Count Act. Because what we need is a president who's going to secure our border, actually make our foreign policy be strong again and make sense again. That's what matters.
Are you going to follow the new law about certifying?
And I've been very clear, Dana, as long as states and jurisdictions follow election procedures in their states, there will be no problem for me or anybody on Capitol Hill.
All right. Well, that's a giant loophole that you're leaving there, which there's no evidence that has not happened. It didn't happen in 2020.
That's not a loophole. That's actually not a loophole, Dana.
It is.
And if you look at what happened in Pennsilvania, Arizona, and other jurisdictions in 2020, they did not follow election procedures passed by the state legislature. That's an empirical fact.
Evidence of widespread fraud that went through, 60 court cases and even
Dana, I did not say fraud. You said fraud. What I'm talking about, and if you want to talk about it, let's be clear. You had the state of Pennsylvania where the state Supreme Court said they would count ballots 3 days after the polls closed in Pennsylvania in 2020. That's a violation of state law passed by the legislature, signed by the governor. But that's what happened in the state of Pennsylvania. That's one example.
Okay. Well, Congressman, this has been litigated, and I'm assuming that a lot more of it will be litigated. Let's just hope that everybody watches the votes counted and takes a breath and lets them be counted, particularly in Pennsylvania, which doesn't start to count by law until Election Day. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate it.
They're out of time.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna listen to Team Walz. Everybody has nicknames for him, but I'll let you say that in your own private spot. But let's listen to Tim Walz right now on Fox. Let's get it.
All right, moments ago, you heard from Republican vice presidential candidate J.D. Vance, and now to our exclusive interview with the Democratic VP candidate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. Welcome back for a second week in a row. Good to see you, Governor.
Yeah, thanks, Shannon. Thanks for having me back.
Okay, so listen, I still have a lot of questions. I'm glad you're back for more of a conversation. But when I heard that you wanted to come back this week, your team reached out. I was a little bit surprised. What's that about?
Well, look, folks deserve to hear where we stand on this. Vice President Harris and I have an agenda for, new way forward, a manufacturing agenda. I was just in Michigan this week, and I think folks are still undecided out there. And I appreciate you. You ask good, hard questions, and your viewers get a chance to hear.
Okay, we appreciate you coming because we do want our viewers to hear from everybody. They've got decisions to make. Although you and I both, I don't know, it's hard to find an undecided voter at this point, but you've come across some, so maybe they're watching today. Okay, let's ask about the Electoral College, because this week you made some news when you said it, quote, needs to go.
Yeah.
Campaign said not their position. You say you line up with the campaign now. One author who's written a book about why America has the Electoral College says this in a Politico piece: cities already are the homes of America's major media, donor, academic, and government centers. A simple direct democracy will centralize all power, government, business, money, media, and votes in urban areas to the detriment of the rest of the nation. Now, you did once refer to red areas on a map as, quote, mostly rocks and cows. But the founders clearly wanted to protect voices in those areas. Do you not?
Yeah, well, the rest of that quote that they cut off was, I said that includes my mom and my family. Look, my point on this is people feel, and they have to feel, every vote counts in every place of the country. And I think what the point was on this is they see us in battleground states and not across the country. So the campaign's position is clear on this. That's not to get rid of the Electoral College, but it's to focus on every vote. And I think your viewers out there listening want to see these campaigns in every corner talking to every person. And look, as a rural guy, that's, again, you know how politics goes, cut off the back part of this. My point being on that is those are areas that need to be heard. So every voter out there, every vote needs to count.
Okay, so let's get back to some things we didn't get to discuss last week. Let's talk about the issue of censorship and free speech. You've said there's no guarantee to free speech for misinformation or hate speech. But first of all, Supreme Court very clear in a unanimous 2017 decision that hate speech is protected. That's the kind of stuff that needs to be protected, stuff none of us like to hear. But more importantly, who gets to decide on the issue of what misinformation is?
Look, the First Amendment is foundational. It's something I spent my whole life, the vice president, and I think most Americans are clear on this. The point being on this, we're seeing censorship coming in the form of book bannings in different places. We're seeing it attempts in schools. The issue on this is the hate speech and the protected hate speech. Speech that's aimed at creating violence, speech that's aimed at threats to individuals. And that's what we're talking about in this. And the decision on that, society decides on a lot of this. The idea of someone going on and threatening someone's life or a child's life online, I don't think any of your viewers think that is something that should be acceptable.
I mean, there's a distinction, you would say, though, between something like a threat and misinformation.
Oh, certainly, and that's what we're talking about. And I think the idea of making sure that folks understand, are good consumers of that, those are the decisions they make. But I've always defend your First Amendment rights, defend your right to disagree on every case. That robust discussion has to happen. And that's why I'm so opposed to book banning. That's why in Minnesota we banned the practice of book banning. Let you make the decision of what you're going to read, whether you find it objectionable or not. The difference is threats, that type of speech.
Okay. The distinction there. Okay, let's talk about guns, too, because back in 2010, you had an A rating from the NRA. You were happy about it then. You said this: I'm proud to stand with the NRA to protect our Second Amendment rights, and I'm truly grateful for their endorsement. Now, by 2018, you'd gone all the way to an F, but you were also then happy about that rating. Your running mate has said more than once, the vice president, that she is for mandatory gun buyback. She also said at one point in the past, even if you legally possess a gun in the sanctity of your locked home, that doesn't mean that we're not going to walk in and check on things. Now, you both say you're gun owners, so are you okay with that? Someone at some point saying you have to give one of your guns back, all of your guns back, and or somebody doing a warrantless search in your home of guns that you legally own?
Yeah, no one's talking about that. And I was with my guns yesterday out pheasant hunting with my friends, many of them conservatives. Many of them conservative on this, and I just want to be clear on this. The NRA as an organization that I grew up with was about gun safety. There has been a dramatic shift, and I don't think anybody can argue that, where the NRA went, especially on things that we can't even do research on gun violence. And I've made it clear that setting with the Sandy Hook parents, setting with some of these kids who were in schools where there were school shootings, and having friends that were around these things had a profound impact on me. But look, I will defend the Second Amendment, and there's nothing that we're proposing, whether it's extreme risk protection orders or background checks, that will stop you from owning that. And I think we're talking about things like trigger locks and things that responsible gun owners do anyway. So look, this is a red herring issue that we can own guns, protect the Second Amendment, and then our first responsibility is protect our children in society. And I know we can do that. I think this idea of just brushing it off, saying, well, this is just the way things are, why would we not research what's causing this? Why would the gun manufacturers oppose understanding exactly why America is so different than other gun-owning countries? So look, no one's coming for your guns. I continue to buy them. The vice president is a gun owner. So many of your viewers are, but they also are concerned that we don't need to see our children shot in schools.
Yes, I think everybody can agree on that. Now, the NRA would say that they are the foremost when it comes to programs for safety for hunters, for kids, for gun owners, that is still part of their mission. But this issue of whether Americans should be forced to give their guns back at some point or whether a warrantless search is okay, I'm assuming you're opposed to both of those.
Yeah, nobody's proposing that. Nobody's proposing your guns. That's exactly right.
All
the
right.
thing is, Shannon, that I'm most concerned with, though, is like guns in homes. The number one thing is children getting the gun and shooting themselves. We do education campaigns here. We give out free gun locks. 40,000 of these things at the state fair a couple years ago. Those are legal gun owners saying, you're right, we can do some of these things.
Yeah, and I think that if you have children in your home, absolutely, you've got an obligation to make sure that those things are under lock and key. Okay, now it appears that your evolution politically, your years in Congress, there in Minnesota, you've moved to the left. I think that is fair to say. Here's what the Intelligencer says. Walz had a fairly conservative voting record in Congress where he represented a red district. He used that record to win the governorship and then moved sharply left. Here's something that you said weeks ago.
Don't ever shy away from our progressive values. One person's socialism is another person's neighborliness.
Okay, so Merriam-Webster Dictionary on Socialism says it's a system of society or group living in which there's no private property, or this condition of society in which the means of production are owned and controlled by the state. Did you mean to advocate for that here in the U.S.?
No. Shannon, look, I'm a capitalist. I was making the point of is Republicans oftentimes talk about socialism. And what I would make the case of is we build our roads collectively together. I don't think anybody's arguing that you should have to build your own road from your house to your business place or whatever. So I said this definition that the right uses about this, things that we collectively do together, that, look, I believe in moral capitalism. I believe capitalism works and it lifts everyone up. But I also believe you have to make sure that there's things that we collectively do together. We educate our children by using our public schools. We build roads. We do some of the things like public health where we work together. So the point being on this is of trying to divide that, but you certainly can't have a capitalism that says billionaires get everything and the middle class gets nothing. And I think Kamala Harris's point on this is lifting up the middle class, making an opportunity economy, making housing affordable, making drug prices more affordable. That's what we're talking about. And so I said, don't listen to them tell you that these things that we can do together, but also we want people to succeed. And when you succeed, all we're asking is that you pay your fair share. I'm excited when people if they make it, their business grows, they become wealthy, that's fine. Just pay your fair share and then all of us do better.
Okay, so did you not mean to use the word socialism? Was it a knucklehead thing or did you mean to use it?
No, it was what the right uses. Would you describe, Shannon, and your viewers, that building roads is socialism?
No, but that's also not the government controlling all property and means of funding those roads and taking from you and saying that you don't have your private funds. Although people would argue about taxes, some people argue that they do feel like it feels confiscatory.
Well, no, we made no problem. Look, the point being is Donald Trump says that this is a socialist or Marxist government. Kamala Harris is actually doing just the opposite of that, creating a free economy that works and people can grow into the middle class. So I think the argument here is that just trying to blanket over. Most people recognize that the Infrastructure Act is creating massive private wealth because of building that out together. And that's what Kamala Harris has done, understanding that the things that government should do, government can do. The things the private sector can do, they should. That's a big difference from Donald Trump skewing things towards the wealthy.
Well, and listen, when you want to talk about the tax cuts, that they're going to be sunsetted unless there is, depending on who wins and what happens in Congress as well, IRS data shows that did benefit every class of taxpayers. So, you know, of course, the Trump-Vance team is going to want to argue about that. But let me ask you this. Your Minnesota record, this is a piece written in the Wall Street Journal by a longtime Minneapolis resident and attorney there. He says, under Mr. Walz, Minnesota's become a high-crime state. Student achievement has tumbled as spending on schools has skyrocketed. Per capita gross domestic product has fallen below the national average. And he says Minnesotans have joined the residents of New York, California, and Illinois, fleeing their home states, and notes that you were elected by a much tighter margin the second time around than you were the first time, because he says people are leaving with their feet and their votes and that they don't like the way that you govern Minnesota.
Yeah, well, I won by nearly 8 points on that. What I would say is it's a Republican writing that. I wouldn't be surprised by it. The fact of the matter is Minnesota is recognized as a top 5 business state, top 3 state to raise children. We are #1 in health care. Crime in America is at a 50-year low. Contrast that to Donald Trump's time in office.
But they're talking about crime in Minnesota.
Yes, and you can look at the statistics. You can see where we're at. We certainly know that during the Trump years, we saw murders go up and things, but they're all coming down. The country, 50-year low, same thing here. So I think contrasting to that, look, this is about Donald Trump going to Detroit and saying Detroit stinks. This is about Republicans saying Minnesota's not good. This is where they go to states. Donald Trump actually going so far as to saying maybe I won't give disaster aid to states that vote blue. Kamala Harris wants to be a president for all Americans. Kamala Harris is not going to divide states based on where they're at. This is just, it's simply not the case. We simply have a high quality of life that we're very proud of. I would invite folks to come to Minneapolis, come visit the 5-0 Minnesota Vikings, and you'll see a state that's thriving, a state that's building homes, a state that's focusing on the middle class and jobs.
All right. Well, we will leave that there with your critics and their questions that they say the data proves out the claims they're making about crime and education and all those other things. So folks can check it out. We'll share some of that too. Governor, I still have more questions. Maybe we'll talk again. It's great to have you back this week.
Shout out to Tim Walz on this one. I'm not even going to cap. He was articulate. He said what he was supposed to say. He made some very valid points. I'm not going to cap. He made some really, really good points in this interview. This is what I expect the presidential candidate, Kamala Harris, to be doing. But Tim Walz has stepped up. And we got to give him credit for that. I guess because it's like the heat is coming down on them saying, yo, you guys are not doing interviews. You guys are not talking to the American people. What's up, man? What's going on, man? So she's like, okay, Tim, go do what you got to do. So, Tim, I applaud you for this. If he performed like this at the vice presidential debate, things would have been much more different than what we have today. However, let's listen to the vice presidential candidate for the Republican Party, J.D. Vance. I told you, J.D. Vance is the new star. J.D. Vance is the new star, guys. I'm telling y'all.
Joining us now, Republican vice presidential nominee, Ohio Senator J.D. Vance. Senator, welcome back to Fox News Sunday.
Thanks for having me, Shannon. Good morning.
Good morning. All right, there's a lot of new polling out there, but let's start with the gender gap because there is a double-digit lead for the vice president among women in nearly all of the battleground states. Politico makes this observation. Rather than pick a running mate who appealed to suburban women in swing states, he chose J.D. Vance, who was engineered to appeal to that self-styled alpha male crowd. They suggest that you guys are banking on the bro vote to carry you across the finish line. Politico has this line, says they've given up on the idea that they can get women voters. Are you giving up on us?
No, not at all, Shannon. Of course, that's a completely ridiculous argument for Politico to make. I mean, look, I'm aware of the gender gap. I see the polling that everybody else does. I also think there's some evidence that we've made some progress in the last few weeks. And of course, we're still a few weeks from the actual game day here. And so we're going to keep on making our argument to women voters, to male voters, to everybody that Donald Trump is the candidate of peace and prosperity. I think two issues in particular where I just make my pitch directly to women voters, Shannon, is number one, on public safety. We have a lot of young Americans right now who are dying of fentanyl overdoses, fentanyl that was brought into our communities, of course, through Kamala Harris's open border. Don't we want to raise our children as moms and dads in communities that are safe enough for kids to make mistakes without that mistake being laced with fentanyl and taking their life? Of course, don't we want our communities to not have these criminal gangs like we see in Aurora, Colorado, running rampage in that city? I think that a lot of women voters, but frankly a lot of men voters too, care a lot about public safety, and clearly President Trump is the candidate of public safety. The final point I'd make, Shannon, is that inflation often hits young women and women harder than other groups. Of course, we know that in a lot of households, women do the grocery shopping. That's not true in my household, as a matter of fact, but we know that women sometimes are the ones who see the effects of these higher rents, higher grocery prices, higher electric and utility bills, because they're the ones who are often, administering things. And I think that we can do such a better job for women to make it possible for them to afford the basic necessities of life, especially single moms, because we know, Shannon, for single moms, they're the only ones often doing these things. They don't have a whole lot of help. They need their government to not be screwing things up so badly.
Well, listen, this administration is going to point to good numbers that they got on the economy this week. This was the headline the DNC sent out. Inflation drops to lowest level since pandemic under Biden-Harris leadership. Trump's plans would cause, quote, inflation bomb. They're touting the vice president's plans to cut taxes for the middle class, give a leg up to small businesses, help with child tax credits, which I know is one of the few things that you guys actually agree on, bring down the cost of home ownership. They have different ideas about how to do that. They say versus your plan, which is just to give tax cuts to your wealthy friends.
Well, Shannon, I think that's ridiculous in a few ways. So first of all, they're trying to accuse Donald Trump of doing something that he didn't do during the 4 years that he was in president. We have to remember that he delivered the fastest take-home pay increases in a generation. We had inflation at 1.5%. And yes, he did selectively use tariffs to bring American manufacturing back to the United States, to increase the wages of workers and to push back against communist China. But he did that while delivering low inflation. And so in some ways, Kamala Harris's entire argument, Shannon, is that Donald Trump is going to somehow do something radically different than what he did during his first 4 years in office. What President Trump is in fact saying is we need to build upon the success of his 4 years in office and frankly get away from the record of failure of Kamala Harris. 3.5 years in office, trillions and trillions of dollars of new spending. We have more American manufacturing workers that are struggling. We have a wide open southern border, and most importantly, whether it's single moms or single dads, we've got people who can't afford groceries and rent. That is not a record to hang your hat on, but that's the Kamala Harris record.
Well, let's talk about tariffs, because you mentioned that, and there are a lot of critics who say what you and President Trump are now talking about is something much broader than a targeted tariff. They say it's immediately going to add thousands of dollars of new costs for Americans every year. A couple of former members of Congress, a Republican and a Democrat, wrote a piece in The Hill this week warning about this. They say a major element of his economic plan is the imposition of high tariffs on imports, which would be much more likely to lead to a depression than anything that Harris is proposing. They walk through President Hoover's decision to improve broad tariffs after the October 29 crash in the markets, and they say it led to the same things they worry would happen now: higher cost of living for all Americans, a tougher time, higher tariffs on U.S. exports, and actually killing a lot of manufacturing jobs here in the U.S. So why not be more precision about it than what it sounds like President Trump is suggesting on the campaign trail?
Well, first of all, Shane, I think those representatives fundamentally misunderstand history. As President Trump says all the time, William McKinley and Teddy Roosevelt built the American industrial powerhouse that we have today using tariffs to ensure that American workers got a fair deal and foreign competitors weren't able to undercut the wages of our workers. We have to sort of back up and ask ourselves, well, what is a tariff? Because people accuse it of being something that it's not. Think about if you're a foreign competitor working in China using literal Chinese slave labor at $3 a day, an American middle-class worker is never going to be able to compete on cost alone. We can compete on quality with those foreign slave laborers in China. So if you're going to use slave labor in China, what a tariff says is that you're going to pay a fat penalty before bringing those products back into the United States. That's really the only way to ensure that America has a viable industrial base.
Why not do that in a more precise way, a more surgical way than what we've been hearing from the campaign trail? Does President Trump plan something that is more targeted, or is it as broad as we've been led to believe by his own statements?
Well, Shannon, I think that President Trump can do these things in a broad-based way while also being targeted at the nations and at the industries that America most needs. We have to remember, Shannon, that we followed the advice of those congressmen for 30 years in this country. China now has 32% of world manufacturing GDP. America has 18% of world manufacturing GDP. Unless we use the power that we have economically to bring back good manufacturing, we're going to wake up in a country 20, 30 years from now where everything that we need, the pharmaceuticals that we put into the bodies of our children, the weapons of war that our troops use, are made by foreign countries that don't like us very much. The only way to prevent that, and the only way to rebuild the prosperity we had 30 years ago, is to do what Donald Trump is proposing. One final point on this tariff issue, Shannon, is for 200 years, the American economic miracle was built by using tariffs when appropriate to ensure that American workers could thrive. We've gone the other direction for 30 years at the time that our middle class has been shrinking, inequality has been going up. We've tried the experiment of shipping our jobs to China and building prosperity off that. It's a failed experiment. We need to get back to the Trump approach of rebuilding the American middle class and the manufacturing sector that really is the foundation of that middle class.
Okay, I want to get to the Trump and Vance approach when it comes to abortion. Clearly, that's one of the issues that appears to be leading to this gender gap that you guys have a disadvantage with. Governor Walz, when he joined us last week, said here that you have supported a national abortion ban in the past. He may have been referring to this position you took in 2022. This is from your Senate debate then.
You would vote for Lindsey Graham's 15-week ban?
As I just said, I think it's totally reasonable to say you cannot abort a baby, especially for elective reasons, after 15 weeks of gestation. No civilized country allows it.
Okay, so not a federal ban per se on the procedure everywhere, but if you're talking about 15 or 20-week ban nationally, that is going to cut off access to a lot of people who have greater access in a number of different states now. You've talked about how this is back to the states. Has your position on that changed? Would you vote for something that was a 15, 20-week ban at the national level?
Well, Shannon, first of all, I do think it's reasonable to say at a certain level late-term abortions are barbaric if they're done for elective reasons. Of course, you have to have the exceptions, but late-term abortions for elective reasons is something that no civilized country allows. And certainly there is a contrast here between Governor Walz and Kamala Harris. They want late-term abortions funded by taxpayers, forced on Christian hospitals, and that's not something that Donald Trump and I like.
Okay,
but even
when
within
you talk about a 15 or 20-week ban,
Shannon,
people will say that sounds like a national ban. I mean, we're just playing with semantics here.
No, it's not, Shannon, because look, President Trump, who of course.
Thank you for tuning into the live show. Double tap your screen. Let's get the likes up. Let's go. And subscribe to the channel. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe to the channel. This is something that is a very sensitive topic, this right here. And, you know, most candidates have lost and won an election just based on this topic. It's a very delicate topic, man.
Of course, as the leader of the Republican Party, has explicitly said that he would not support a national abortion ban. He has said that he thinks this issue should be left to the states. That is the official policy of the Republican Party in this election, and it's something that clearly President Trump believes in. And I think it's important to say why, Shannon, because it illustrates how different our approaches are here. President Trump recognizes that California is a different state from Alabama, which is a different state from Pennsylvania. We want the voters in these states to make these decisions. We're sick of the nationalized culture war over this topic, and I think the best way is to return it to the voters in the states. President Trump has certainly made that the official policy of our party.
And quickly on Planned Parenthood, you guys have talked about defunding them, taking away government funding. They say that no U.S. taxpayer funding can flow to abortion at any stage, but they say they do hundreds of thousands of cancer screenings, birth control, which they say actually prevents another 500,000 abortions a year, and all kinds of other testing and medication, contraception. Where would those patients go if Planned Parenthood lost the funding?
Well, Shannon, what we've said is that we don't want taxpayer funding for abortions. And that, of course, has been the bipartisan approach over 40 years in this country until, frankly, Kamala Harris came along. I know that Planned Parenthood does a lot of things that a lot of young women, a lot of young families need. We're talking about we don't believe in taxpayer funding for abortions. That's been the policy, not just of the Republican Party, by the way, but even a lot of Democrats who are pro-choice, who want wide access to abortion will say, we don't think taxpayers should be funding this stuff. And that, again, that bipartisan bipartisan consensus is something President Trump very much supports.
Okay, so maybe not a full defunding of Planned Parenthood per se, but anything that you would be able to potentially track, which they say doesn't happen, but to abortion. We have so many more questions. We hope you will come back soon, as Governor Walz is doing this week as well. Senator, good to see you.
Thanks for having me, Shannon.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey.
Ladies and gentlemen, telling you that's a very delicate topic. I don't even want to talk about it. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's go listen to Israel. Let's see what's going on in Israel as per CNN.
We are following breaking news out of the Middle East. At least 4 Israeli soldiers have been killed, dozens more injured after Hezbollah drones hit an Israeli army base near Haifa. The drone attack is one of the bloodiest since the war started last October. Hezbollah has claimed responsibility. Let's go down to CNN's Nick Robertson, who is in Tel Aviv and joins us now live. Nick, this seems like a major moment to mark.
It is. The IDF has confirmed that this was a military base that was struck, that 4 soldiers are dead, 7 are critically injured. Medics on the scene describe it as a very difficult situation. More than 60 casualties, they said, evacuated to 8 different hospitals by ambulance and by helicopter. But you have to stress here that this base is 40 miles from the border with Lebanon. That's a long way. It's closer to here in Tel Aviv than it is to the actual fighting at the war front. So this is very significant, and it absolutely does seem to be perhaps the bloodiest incident targeting and hitting IDF forces away from the front line since October the 7th last year. The IDF chief spokesman has been to the site tonight, describing what has happened. He's described that Hezbollah managed to get a drone into the base, that it came across the northern border from Lebanon around about 7 p.m. He said the situation is now under IDF control, but what he describes is a scenario that requires investigation and reveals that they've come up short on defenses, and he says the defenses need improving too.
We are now busy contacting their families. All of the soldiers at the base were instructed to call home and update their families that they are okay. We are managing the incident. We will learn from and investigate the incident, how a UAV entered without an alert at the base. The threat of UAVs is a threat we are dealing with since the beginning of the war. We need an improvement to our defense.
So Hezbollah over recent days has been threatening to target bases and collections of Israeli troops away from the border. This is something that it's been threatening to do. Now, after this strike tonight, they claimed that this was the act of a suicide drone, and Hezbollah describes a scenario where they appear to have tried to cheat it or fooled the air defense systems here in Israel. They fired, they say, lots of rockets, dozens of rockets into northern Israel, and then after that, with the intention, they say, of confusing the air defense systems, and then sent a squad of suicide drones to target the base. Now, that may be an overstatement of what they did, but it clearly shows that Hezbollah has been trying to find, over recent weeks, a way to get around the air defense systems here, which until now have been pretty effective. On Friday, a Hezbollah drone managed to get within a few miles of Tel Aviv and hit a nursing home not far away, and that was after intercept efforts. So Hezbollah seems to be refining their tactics here. And as you heard from the IDF spokesman there, they absolutely need to improve. This is a very, very deadly and bloody day for the IDF today.
Yeah, it certainly is. I also want to ask you about this other major development. The U.S. now saying it's going to send an advanced anti-missile system to Israel along with about 100 U.S. troops to operate it. How significant is that?
It's very significant. This system, the THAAD, the Terminal High Altitude Area Defense missile system, is designed to intercept ballistic missiles, and it's ballistic missiles that Iran fired at Israel 2 weeks ago, more than 180 of them. Some of them got through to bases and other sites in Israel, military bases. So with this THAAD system, it should give Israel more protection if Iran strikes them again with ballistic missiles. The Houthis in Yemen, the Hezbollah to the north in Lebanon have also been firing ballistic missiles here. But this is a comprehensive system, and 100 troops is about what is normally sent with one of these weapon systems. And it's a comprehensive system that should sort of provide more or less blanket coverage across the whole country and will supplement what Israel's doing already. But I think what it tells us is that the United States and Israel recognize that this perhaps tit-for-tat exchange of missiles with Iran could escalate from here, and Israel needs more protection to withstand it if that's the case.
Certainly. All right, Nick Robertson, with really important reporting for us tonight from Tel Aviv. Thank you so much for that.
Man, it's just so many things going on in the world, guys. So many things. It's just sad to see people going back and forth over. Oh man, I don't even want to talk about that because let's just be at peace. You know, can we just be at peace? Can't we just be at peace? Can we just be at peace? All right, let's listen to the former president Donald J. Trump. He had an interview on Fox here. Let's listen.
You said in your Detroit speech that you want to renegotiate your USMCA deal with Canada and Mexico. Yeah. But doesn't that undermine the deal that you put together?
No, because I put together a deal that gives me the right to renegotiate, because these are very smart people.
Why do you want to renegotiate it?
Because I want to make it a much better deal. I want to take advantage now of the car industry. Which lets me do that. So I put a clause in. The hardest clause I had with them was, I want to be able to see how it's working, and I want to renegotiate. No way, we want to, I said, that's the way it is. Either you do that, or I'm not going to make a deal, and I don't mind. I didn't mind not making a deal, by the way. The problem we had is NAFTA. We had to get rid of it. It had to get out. It was the worst deal. Do you know when they signed NAFTA many years ago, they made typos and they made mistakes in the agreement that normally you would just sit back and change the following day? Nobody went back to change it. And it was things like numbers, they put wrong numbers in. They didn't really put wrong. The other people made them put wrong numbers. They put wrong numbers in. And nobody changed it for 30 years.
So what about USMCA? What do you want to renegotiate?
There are always things that you can do better. I got a clause that gives me the right to renegotiate it. Who else would think of that except a business person, a good one? I'm a really good business person, I will tell you. So that's the story. I'm able to renegotiate it. And I will renegotiate to the benefit of our country. We've been screwed by Mexico and by China and by Canada and by the European Union. Oh, European Union, it sounds so nice. The villages of the European Union, right? They are brutal. When you add up all of those countries, they're about the same size as us. They're a little bit smaller. And the European Union takes advantage of us unbelievably. But I made a great deal with Japan. I made a great deal with South Korea. I said to them, we've got 40,000 soldiers over there. They're in harm's way. Now, I happen to get along with Kim Jong-un very well. If I didn't, and it started off nasty, remember? Little Rocket Man? I called him Little Rocket Man. He called me things. And then he said, I have a red button on my desk. And I said, I have a red button also, but it's bigger and my red button works. And it was really nasty, and a lot of people were worried, actually. And then he called me, and he said, I'd like to get together. I asked President Obama. He said the single biggest problem we had was North Korea. They have great nuclear force. And he said he thinks that's the biggest problem. I asked him, I said, what's the biggest problem? He said, North Korea. At our little meeting before, it's a ritual. You meet with the president, the new president coming in. I said, what's the biggest problem? He said, North Korea. He said, they were close to going to war, I think. And we would have had a nuclear war with millions of people killed. And when I was in there, I got along great with Kim Jong-un. I got along great with Putin, despite the fake Russia hoax. You know.
Well, you're talking about nuclear facilities now with regard to Israel. And, you know, you said that you think that Israel should, in fact, hit Iran's nuclear facilities. Isn't this dangerous to be talking about impacting
you don't want
nuclear facilities?
You can't let them have a nuclear weapon. Here's the story. When I left, Iran was broke. I said to China, you can't buy oil, and if you buy 1 barrel of oil, I'm not doing any business with you in the U.S. You're shut out. We're going to go cold turkey, which a lot of people say, let's do that anyway. And I said, in addition to that, anything that gets through is going to have 100% tariff. And Japan and others in China said, we'll pass. And Iran was doing almost zero business. And they were broke and ready to make a deal. Now they have $300 billion. He took all the sanctions off, and they're the ones that are sponsoring all the terror. He took all the sanctions off, took everything off, and it's too bad. I want him to be...
Well, if you get back in, are you going to go back to maximum pressure on Iran?
I can't tell you that, and I'll tell you why. I think it's so bad to tell a broadcaster, and you're a good one, a journalist, I don't want to say what I'm going to do in a negotiation, because you can't negotiate that way.
I thought it was odd that today President Biden said that he spoke with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu for the first time in 7 weeks or something.
Pathetic.
They've been at war for over a year. And he hasn't spoken with him in 7 weeks. When was the last time you've spoken with Netanyahu?
Like 2 days ago. And he came to my house in Florida, Mar-a-Lago, with his wife, who's lovely. But he came to Mar-a-Lago. He came to, I guess he was
I saw the visit.
At the White House, maybe the UN.
Is there anything you could share with us in terms of that, the Israel-Iran conflict? What would you do to end the war on Israel?
I could tell you that Bibi has been very strong. He is not listening to Biden.
It sounds like he stopped sharing information with the U.S.
Look, Biden is the one that came up with the Afghanistan plan. Take the soldiers out first and leave all that weakness. Leave Bagram behind. Bagram's one of the biggest air bases in the world. We built it for billions and billions of dollars many years ago. It's 1 hour away from where China makes its nuclear weapons, and he gave it up. He's a fool. And we can't have another fool as a president. Biden is smarter than she is. We can't have this for another 4 years. We're not going to have a country left.
Do you have a message for the people who are trying to come to America legally and they're still waiting?
It's so sad. It's so sad. You have people that have been waiting for 11 and 12 years, and then you have other people that just walk through and everybody wants to give them amnesty. But the bigger problem is this: so many of those people are criminals. We're a laughingstock all over the world. They are opening up their jails, and they're opening up, they're taking MS-13s off the street. I took them out by the thousands. ICE. We love ICE. I love ICE. They fight. They know how to fight. They like to fight. But they love our country. And you put them into what they call a rat pack of MS-13, probably the worst gangs in the world. They use knives because it hurts people more. You put them into that, and it's a rough deal.
But there are people who are coming here legally, and they're waiting for years to get their citizenship. So do you have a message for those people?
Yeah, stay there, because we want people to come in. Just so you understand, I want people to come in, but they have to come in legally. That's going to be stepped up. You know, we need more people, especially when these companies are coming in. We're going to have companies. But they have to come in with love for the country, and they have to come in with some competence.
I'm Steve Doocy.
Trump is just on another level, guys. Straight up another level. This man is on another level.
Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, well, they might as well just assume residency.
All right, let's hear what they have to say about the polls. Because, you know, they always say, it's a close race.
Pennsylvania. It's attracted the most amount of attention of any of the 50 states, and it could very well determine the next president. And now with the voter registration deadline fast approaching, there are some critical data points to help give us some clues about what might happen in just 3 short weeks. So I have Harry Enton here at the Magic Wall to dive into the numbers. All right, so Harry, tell us what you have found about how voters are leaning at this point compared to 2020.
Yeah, I mean, the voter registration numbers, if you want a stat that Republicans absolutely love, it's this one. All right, Pennsylvania voter registration, you register by party in that state. You go back to November of 2020, you see Democrats 47%, Republicans 39%. That was an 8-point advantage. Look at where we are today. Yes, more voters in Pennsylvania are registered as Democrats than Republicans, but it's now just 44% to 40%. Now they've got a 4-point gap. Republicans, have cut that Democratic advantage in half. In such a short period of time. They have gone out, they have registered voters. There are folks that have come over to their side who were previously registered Democrats. The question is, where are they picking up ground, Manu? Where are they picking up ground? This, to me, says it all. All right, which Pennsylvania counties did the GOP gain in registration? If you look in the counties where less than 50% of the population is non-college white voters, Republicans gain just a point. Where you have over 50% non-college whites, look at this. Republicans gain 6 points on average. Wow. They are picking up ground in the areas you would expect them to pick up ground, right? Those non-college white dominated areas, coal country in the Northeast, Southwest outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. But the bottom line is the registration trends, the trends we've been seeing the last few cycles with Republicans dominating among non-college white voters, very much showing up in this party registration.
It's so interesting because David McCormick, who's the Senate candidate, the Republican Senate candidate, told me actually he believes that can actually propel him to victory because they're narrowing that margin with Democrats of voter registration. But what does this mean for Kamala Harris and her chances of victory in Pennsylvania?
All right, so all of this data, bad news for Democrats, right? Good news for Republicans. But there's one thing to keep in mind, right? You had that New York Times Siena College poll that came out yesterday that showed Kamala Harris slightly ahead, but within the margin of error. Why is that? Because take a look here. This is the Pennsylvania margin by party registration in that poll. What you see here is that Kamala Harris, I'm going to come over to your side of the screen, Manu, is doing better among Democrats, a 77-point lead, than Donald Trump is among Republicans, a 74-point advantage. She's also doing better with those who are not registered with a party or with another party. But this nugget is key because even though Republicans have closed that registration gap, they haven't closed it completely. So the fact that Harris is doing slightly better among Democrats and Republicans, and there are more of them, that is what gives Democrats solace, is because at this particular point, that state, compared to, say, Arizona, slightly more favorable to Kamala Harris, at least in the polling data so far.
So what does this tell us? I mean, are we seeing this nationally? Are we seeing this in other battleground states, this change in the registration advantage Democrats?
Yeah, all right. So this, if it was just Pennsylvania and we're seeing just one state, I don't think we'd necessarily be doing this segment, but I believe it is part of a larger picture. Fewer voters who are registered as Democrats. This is across the battleground states where you have party registration. Not every state has party registration, right? Wisconsin doesn't, Georgia doesn't, Michigan doesn't. But in the battleground states where, in fact, you do have party registration, there are now fewer registered Democrats in Arizona, fewer registered Democrats in Nevada, fewer registered Democrats, and, of course, the great state of North Carolina. So what we're seeing in Pennsylvania is being seen in other states as well. More folks are registering as Republicans as compared to Democrats. But we're looking at the battleground states. Let's take this out nationally, all right? This is party registration, but let's look at party identification. Party registration, of course, is you're actually registered with a party. Party ID is when you say, I feel like a Democrat today, I feel like a Republican today. They're correlated, but they're not exactly the same. But I think it gets at the trend that's going on here, Manu. All right, so party ID nationally. You go to October, November of 2016, Democrats had a 3-point advantage. You go 4 years ago, Democrats had a 6-point advantage. Look at where we are today, Manu. Republicans with a 1-point advantage. A very different picture, very much mirroring what we see in the party registration numbers in those key battleground states and Pennsylvania in particular.
And it actually just shows you, too, why Harris is doing what she's trying to do. She's trying to moderate a little bit on these issues, trying to reach those very voters because the party registration is changing and the demographics of the voters are changing. And those are the people she needs to attract.
Absolutely. And the GOP leads by a point in party identification right now. The average when the Republican Party loses is the Democrats ahead by 8. When the Republican Party wins, the average party ID advantage for Democrats is 3. Republicans right now, Manu, are doing even better than the average when they win. If there's one little nugget that I think Republicans are really hopeful for, it's this party ID and this party registration data. It really points in a good direction for them and for Donald Trump.
Wow, we'll see. Close race, and that can absolutely make the difference here. Harry Ent, and of course, the guru breaking it all down for us. Really appreciate it.
At this point, ladies and gentlemen, I am ready to see what happens on November 5. I am so ready, man. I hope you guys have registered to vote. Don't just watch live streams. Be a part of it, okay? Make sure you get ready to vote. Get ready to vote. Okay. Shout out to CNN for the polls. Update right there. All right, let's listen to Fox and see what the former president said about something called the enemy within.
How are you going to guard against the bureaucrats undermining you?
Well, they're
in
going
a
to
second
undermine.
term?
Well, I always say, so we have two enemies. We have the outside enemy, and then we have the enemy from within. And the enemy from within, in my opinion, is more dangerous than China, Russia, and all these countries, because if you have a smart president, he can handle them pretty easily. I got along great with all, I handled them. But the thing that's tougher to handle are these lunatics that we have inside, like Adam Shifty Schiff. Think of this guy's going to be a senator. He's running against a guy that doesn't understand politics at all, Garvey, but he was a good baseball player. But he doesn't understand politics at all. Adam Shifty Schiff, who's a total sleazebag, is going to become a senator. But I call him the enemy from within. When you look at the danger he put our country in, potentially with Russia, with a phony made-up deal that he made up with Hillary and some bad people, that started off as an excuse for why she lost an election that a lot of people thought she should have won, because the polls indicated she might win, and then she got beaten everywhere, virtually. When you look at that, and then they said, it was Russia. They used it as an excuse. And then the fake news picked it up. And while you're on this, let's talk about the single greatest scandal, in my opinion, in broadcast history. 60 Minutes and CBS interviewed Kamala, and she's incompetent. She gave them the dumbest answer anyone's ever heard. So they took that answer out, threw it, or the whole answer they threw out, and they took another answer that she gave to a totally different question and inserted it. And supposedly they did this a number of times, and they got caught. 60 Minutes, and CBS should lose their license for that.
I'm Steve Ducey.
He's going hard on that CBS interview. Okay. Double tap your screen, subscribe to the channel if you have not. What's going on in Florida? For the people affected by Hurricane Milton, I pray for you. I hope you have shelter. I hope you have electricity. I was affected by Hurricane Helen, and I live in East Georgia. We didn't have power for like 10 days. I hope you guys have power now. I hope you have shelter, which is very essential. Let's see what's going on with the Hurricane Milton situation.
For more on the impact of Hurricane Milton, let's bring in Bradenton, Florida Police Chief Melanie Bevan. Chief, welcome.
Good to be here.
So the latest numbers we have are nearly 900,000 Floridians are still without power, which is obviously a major inconvenience for those Florida families, but a big improvement in recent days. What is the latest in your community, Chief?
I know yesterday we had 100,000 people in the county still without power, but that was a great improvement from the day before when it was about 240,000. We seem to see some improvement. I'll tell you, half my officers who are out there on 12-hour shifts are still without power. So it's hurt us quite a bit.
What is the situation in terms of gasoline in Bradenton and the surrounding areas?
It's tough to come by. It seems like it's starting to roll in a little bit more today than yesterday, but of course tempers are short and people are desperate to get gas, not only for their vehicles, but for their generators, because obviously there is no electricity. So we are staffing a half a dozen officers out at some of these gas stations. We're breaking up fights. We're keeping people from cutting in line, which is causing a lot of issues, but we're managing.
President Biden's in Florida today. Here's some of what he had to say.
This is all a team effort, folks. We made a big difference, and it saved lives.
If you had a moment to speak with the president, what would you tell him?
He got that right. I will tell you that the men and women of this agency and every agency in this region worked tirelessly. And this is in the hours and minutes after the storm hit. They were out there in the dark with chainsaws and surveying neighborhoods and seeing who they needed to help and rescue. And it's a team. It's all a team.
Folks in the great state of Florida are used to hurricanes. How do you assess the recovery efforts so far?
I'll tell you, I've been in law enforcement for nearly 40 years. I've participated in cleanup and recovery with most large hurricanes throughout the state. This was the worst we've ever seen. We were still struggling from Helene. It hit us hard. It hit me hard. And then to get this double whammy. But I'll tell you, again, my staff has been working nonstop, half of them sleeping here since Tuesday. And we're not going to leave until our mission is done. And it's getting there. I'm hoping in the days to come, Governor DeSantis has got fuel coming in, that we're going to see some improvement.
Chief, are you dreading the fact that hurricane season is not over yet?
We were unscathed for 90 years in this region. I said to somebody else, they say it's called a paradise tax. We all live in the best state of the nation. It's a beautiful place to live and work and raise your family. And I guess from time to time, Mother Nature exacts a paradise tax. And unfortunately, this is when we had to do it. Hopefully it doesn't come again for another few decades.
Police Chief Melanie Bevan, God bless.
One more time. This is a sad thing. Some people don't even have the place to stay. Some people have left their houses because their houses have been washed away. It is sad. I just pray for you guys. I hope you stay safe. I hope you find refuge in God. Hopefully that works for you. And hopefully I hope you get help from, your insurance or government, or you have some savings to decide that you can use to kind of like get yourself together before you get the main help. Okay, and I hope you and your kids are safe and your pets. All right, it's not a easy thing to see and say.
J.D. Vance was ready to respond during a heated exchange with ABC host Martha Raddatz after she downplayed the threat of migrant gangs with this explanation. Watch.
And what we're hearing, of course, Martha, is that people are terrified by what has happened with some of these Venezuelan gangs.
Senator Vance, I'm going to stop you because I know exactly what happened.
Martha.
I'm going to stop you. The incidents were limited to a handful of apartment complexes.
Only, Martha, do you hear yourself? Only a handful of apartment complexes in America were taken over by Venezuelan gangs, and Donald Trump is the problem and not Kamala Harris's open border.
Joe Concha is a Fox News contributor, and he joins me now. Joe, what did you think of this exchange?
That would be, Carly, like hearing about a couple of years ago that only a handful of blocks in Seattle were taken over by Antifa, including a police station. Just a handful. I am certain, Carly, that if just a handful of violent gangs decide to take over Martha Raddatz's place of residence, she might not be okay with that. It's truly amazing, well, I guess kind of, given the network and their bias, that Martha Raddatz and her team didn't see how pathetic her line of questioning appears to just objective, common sense people. And J.D. Vance absolutely owned her on that answer. So congratulations, I guess, Martha Raddatz. You're now the story, and not in a good way. And trust me, if the handful of apartment complexes taken over by Venezuelan gangs had been near Central Park in Manhattan, or a really nice place in Northern Virginia near Washington, D.C., where many of the media lives, that would be a lead story and suddenly a big cause of concern. But since it's Aurora, Colorado, a couple of apartment complexes, Venezuelan gangs, no big deal.
I know, Joe, taking over a unit is bad enough. They're talking about whole apartment complexes here. So it should probably come as no surprise that the Border Patrol Union yesterday at Trump's rally in Arizona endorsed Donald Trump. That undercuts Kamala Harris's message when it comes to the Border Patrol Union. She says on the campaign trail in the debate that she did with Trump that, well, the Border Patrol Union endorsed that bipartisan bill that Donald Trump wanted to kill. Well, now the whole union is endorsing Donald Trump.
I'm so tired, Carly, of people calling it the bipartisan bill. It was a handful of senators on the Republican side that supported it, but it was never going to pass, and it didn't pass. And by the way, Donald Trump isn't in power, so how could he kill the bill exactly? Because it was toothless, quite frankly. It still allowed millions of people, unvetted, to come into this country illegally. There was nothing in it in terms of Remain in Mexico policy, which is kind of a big deal. There was some money in it for border wall construction, but not nearly enough that is needed. So Trump saw that bill and voiced his opposition to it because, quite frankly, in the end, it was toothless. And now she's lost another union, Kamala Harris has, just like she lost the Teamsters. Maybe their top people endorse her, but the rank and file do not. United Auto Workers do not support her. Restaurant workers do not support her. Rank and file, we're talking again, and that's a very big deal in places like Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Arizona. She loses those states. She loses the election, Carly.
Yeah, and on the in terms of the border bill, 6 Democrat senators also voted against it. So you're right about the fact that it would never pass. Also want to get to this with you. Yeah. Axios is reporting tensions are rising between the Biden and Harris teams nearly 3 weeks from Election Day. They write, quote, the relationship between Kamala Harris's team and Joe Biden's White House has been increasingly fraught in the final weeks before Election Day. 10 people familiar with the situation tell Axios. Biden's team wants Harris to win the election, but many senior Biden aides remain wounded by the president being pushed out of his re-election bid and are still adjusting to being in a supporting role on the campaign trail. And Joe, tensions may continue to rise because NBC News is reporting that Kamala Harris is weighing where to put more distance between her and Joe Biden after she said that she wouldn't do anything differently over the past 4 years. She said that on The View, of course. So is she going to have to criticize an administration that she's been a part of?
That's the tightrope, right? But it's like, hey, I'm going to do a lot of things different than I did while I was vice president when I signed off and broke more ties in the Senate in terms of putting things forward like the Inflation Reduction Act, which actually increased inflation. It's almost impossible for her to say, vote for me because we've done so many great things here, the Biden-Harris team, but then again, vote for me because I'm going to do things different than the same team that I was a part of. It hurts my hair just to kind of say this. And I think in the end, Carly, the tensions are rising because Democrats know that Kamala Harris is losing right now and could even be on the precipice of a landslide loss. You saw one poll come out yesterday where Donald Trump is up nationally in an NBC News poll by 1 point. If he's even tied nationally, that means in the Electoral College, if you look at any model, he's winning all the key swing states of Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona, Nevada, Georgia, North Carolina. Her path has to be that she at least sweeps those blue wall states of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. And right now, it's all slipping away. The trends are all behind Donald Trump because the more Kamala Harris speaks, Carly, the more her polls go backwards, as we saw in 2019. That's what we're seeing here again.
Yeah, there were a lot of reports over the weekend about how worried Democrats are right now.
Like we all know, we promote peace, we promote unity, because at the end of the day, we are Americans, okay? We should come together as one, regardless of who you're voting for. Come together as one, okay? Promote peace. All right, double tap your screen, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel. You guys are the best. We've come to the end of the live show. Like I always say, instead of looking for perfection, seek for consistency. Never give up on yourself. Never give up on God. Never give up on your dreams. Believe in yourself. Believe in your dreams. Believe in God. I know the times are hard. People are looking for money to pay bills, food, shelter, whatever, rent. However, don't give up on yourself. It is hard, but keep believing in yourself. Keep pushing forward. God got you, okay? God got you. All right. It is your boy, Genesis. I am signing out right now, and I hope you have a wonderful Monday. It is Columbus Day, right? Today's Columbus Day. Am I right? October 14, Monday. It is currently 7:02 a.m. and today's date is the 14th of October 2024. Have a wonderful day. I am just about to eat breakfast after this stream and then probably do a little more work and take a little nap and start my day. All right. Stay safe. Genesis is rooting for you. I love you guys. God bless you.